Last week on Infinite Rabbit Hole. I know Jeff's going to say PSYOP, and I agree.
Somebody filed a FOIA request for something, and the government gave them the wrong thing, and it's called the EM effects on human body. And it literally is a document showing that the government has been able for decades now to not only implant false memories, but to control dreams, doing things like forced waking visions, so like you actually see things while you're awake, not just while you're sleeping, forced movements, all kinds of other things. So
if space is fake, then this whole thing is fake.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if now all of the pictures of space and the planets and the galaxies and all that stuff is fake, then why couldn't we be living on a much bigger Earth, and all the pictures of Earth are fake too?
I've converted Jake. I win again.
Still also goes on as an adult to say that, you know what, this was real. And it's not like she's making bank off of it. She's not. She's living in Parkersburg, West Virginia, you guys. Go look at the average household income there. You know, she's not rich by any means. We were never landing on the moon, so anyway.
Get him with that weird shit. Go ahead, do it.
I just did.
Talk dirty to me, Jeff.
I'm on board with Jeff. Space is fake.
Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole. Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I would like to be the first to welcome you to the very last part of our Indrid Cold saga. This is it. This is the last one. We're going to put it all on the table. Everything that you need to know about Indrid Cold's story ends tonight. We're going to go over all of our thoughts and feelings about the subject. We're going to dive into, personally, my favorite part of this entire story. That is the stuff that includes John Keel and a little bit of other stuff as well. But before we jump into all that really, really awesome stuff, let's go ahead and bring in our host for tonight. Of course, I have my right-hand man, Jake. Jake, what's going on, dude?
Might not be a right-hand man for much longer. I found another gray hair today. This podcast is stressing me out. I might have to dip out again.
Oh, man. Well, we know that he only leaves for a couple months, and then he comes crawling back.
Crawling back, yep. Crying.
Crawling back.
Take me back. I'm doing well.
This is why we find hosts to having the ready, just in case Jake wants to back out again.
That's right. I'm a real loser. But yeah. No, I'm just here. I got off work not too long ago. I'm stoked and ready to wrap up this episode and hear all the final thoughts and really just break this whole thing down, because we've heard the story this whole time. And I've been waiting for this like deep conversation so Jeff can blow our minds and rip this thing in half.
I don't think he's gonna, but that whatever. Speaking of Jeff, this is gonna be the last episode we can refer to him as New Guy Jeff.
No.
Yeah, this is it. He's no longer the new guy. He did a whole season with us. He's lasted longer than some other people.
He'll always be a new guy, Jeff.
I guess. From my point of view, at least. Let's welcome for the last time to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, New Guy Jeff. New Guy Jeff, what's going on?
Not much going on. Sipping on an old Jack Daniel's country cocktail beverage, ready to crack this one open, just like Jake put the pressure on me to do. So let's get it.
I don't think you can do it.
He's going to be too sloshed.
The reason why everyone's here, we know that the only reason why anybody's here, including Jeff and Jake, we have Asherz from On Wednesdays We Talk Weird podcast joining us again to lend us her expertise. Asherz, welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm excited. I've really enjoyed doing this deep dive on Indrid Cold, and that's what I've been telling people. I'm pretty sure I've like talked to other people. I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this podcast with these guys, and I was like, I think their show's better than mine. So there you go.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, it's been, no, it's been really fun. It's been really informative. I initially was very, very surprised on how much homework was put into this, and I'm impressed.
She probably says that to everybody.
Yeah. We'll have to go back and listen to all of her episodes
I know,
to
right?
find out.
Call me out on it. We should make like a compilation of everybody that I've said that to.
I'm gonna make you a macaroni noodle owl and send it to you, and I want the same
I want that.
hype. Yeah, like I
Okay.
want you to tell me that it's the best you've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is great,
Oh,
little buddy.
I
I'm gonna
thought-
put it right in the refrigerator, right here.
I thought you were saying that you wanted to like I'll make one and then you make one and then I'll send you mine and you send me yours.
Oh, dude, let's do it.
I think
Let's do
we're doing this.
macaroni Mothman.
Yes. So here for it. This is stupid. I don't know why we're talking about this, but we're going to do it. So
Okay, everyone's heard it.
Asherz, I have to thank you. I was listening to our last episode that well, at this time frame, I was listening to the first episode of this, and when that meth thing, as far as the eye can see, came up, I was laughing like a psycho driving down the road till I was like coughing. It was hilarious.
I mean, it's only funny because it's true. But it really is. No, I mean, I wish that was not. I do wish that was a joke. I can't take credit for that. Shout out to Parkersburg, guys.
Jeff called. Or I did it this time. Jake calls me. He's like, I have an idea for a T-shirt.
Yeah, it was "Welcome to West Virginia" in cursive, or like red cursive, and we take like a picture of a grain field, like the rolling hills, and just put little plants and have like meth crystals all over them in rows all the way down until they just fade out into the background.
Little spaceship in the background. I would.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'd buy it.
Oh man!
If we make something like that based off a joke that you said, we'll send you one.
Sounds good to me.
So we did one T-shirt so far. Like we want to do a whole line of T-shirts from stupid things that are said during our episodes. And during our Wendigo episode, we got into this little side conversation about I can't remember
Land of 10,000 lakes or 1,000 lakes.
Right, but we were talking about the Canadian province right above Minnesota, and I was, we're some reason talking about Minnesota, and I was like, it's the land of 1,000 lakes, and Jake's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes. He Googles it. He goes, Finland. It says Finland. So we made a T-shirt on our merch site that literally has Finland above Minnesota, like the states, the state and the country, and it's like we have like little handwritten words that says Finland and Minnesota. Well, I'll have to send you a screenshot of it. It's hilarious.
He said, and what's right above Minnesota, right? And I was like, Finland. And so we did Infinite Rabbit Hole geography. So it has both combined together, and the way we colored it in, it looks like like a third grader trying to color in between the lines. So there's spaces and holes in between the green of the shading and stuff. It's pretty funny.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's we do that too. We've got one that's going to come out, and it's smoke doobies and smack booties, and there's also all tits and no ass. And so I mean, it's just the banter on the show. I mean, it definitely makes for some catchy slogan shirts.
Rough. Well, I will not be getting either of those, but
oh well, I'll find one. I'll make one, and it's going to be just for Jake. That's all it's going to say. It's just for Jake on it.
Drink coffee and read the Bible, and I'll be like, hey, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. My fun life. Yeah.
When you get a chance, check your phone. I sent you a screenshot of the shirt.
Oh, okay,
it's freaking awesome.
I'll do that.
But all right. So, are we ready to do this? We ready to jump into some John Keel?
Yeah, I am prepared.
Ready. I don't even think Jake knows who John Keel is.
That's fine.
I don't think Jeff knows who John Keel is.
They're gonna learn today.
I'm gonna Google a picture of him and be like, oh, that's John Keel.
He's a short little man, right? He's got a nice beard though.
John Keel is he had a beard.
He did.
He did. That's who John Keel is.
Not as nice as Jeff's beard though.
He's a beard person.
Aww.
That was very nice of you.
Whoa, he is a beard person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right.
I got to get in storytelling mode. For those of you who may not be familiar with John Keel, he was an American journalist and an extremely influential ufologist, as well as the author of a very famous book called The Mothman Prophecies. John Keel served in the U.S. Army as a member of the Armed Forces Network during the Korean War. After his time in the Army, he became a radio correspondent in France, Germany, Italy, and Egypt. He is the man known for coining the title of the Men in Black. And one of his most important contributions to ufology was the finding and sharing of information on clusters of UFO sightings in a specific area during a specific time he referred to as flaps.
There it is. Flaps.
I'm dead serious, Jake. Like, that's exactly what it says.
Flaps.
For those of you that don't understand why I'm laughing, it was this whole thing before the episode where we were talking about flaps and Jake just wouldn't let it go. All right. In John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, he tells of a handful of UFO sightings just prior to the events involving Woody Derenberger. Although some of these events include the sightings of humanesque shaped beings, one in particular stands out the most. In early November 1966, a man walked into the office of Mary Heyer, a reporter for the Athens Press newspaper. He's nervously stating, "I just got to tell somebody." Miss Heyer, who knew the man, listened to what he had to say and was shocked to hear the detailed story that he claimed just happened a few days ago to him and a coworker involving a UFO and a human-looking pilot. The story begins with him describing how he and a coworker were driving home near Parkersburg, West Virginia on Interstate 77 on November 2nd, 1966, when a strange craft lowered in front of their truck came to a stop a few feet ahead of them. A man walked out of a hatch and opened from the side of the craft and began to approach the truck. He looked as normal as any man he has ever seen. He was wearing a black sport coat and his arms were folded in front of him with his hands snug under his armpits. The driver rolled down his window and the stranger asked a series of strange but short questions. Questions such as, who were they? Where were they from? Where are they going? And what was the time? After the short and to-the-point conversation, the man walked back to the craft, got in, and the craft hovered up into the sky, and the men began to continue their drive. These men are believed to have been in the car that passed Woody Derenberger seconds before his first contact with Indrid Cold. The men argued between the two of them on whether they should report the incident, and they both came to the conclusion that it would be smart not to. But the man from Point Pleasant found himself having a difficult time continuing his life, with the memory of the event fresh in his head. He suffered from a bad case of insomnia, and when he was able to sleep, he would be terrorized by horrible nightmares. The man soon turned to liquor as an aid, and felt horrible about it. So he chose to tell someone, even if he stayed anonymous, to still protect his coworker's identity. Now, Mary Heyer, who was a close friend of John Keel's, eventually told Keel about this encounter with a man a few years later and claimed that he was completely unaware of the events with Woody Derenberger. In fact, she believed that the man showed up in her office before the entire craze with Derenberger's story hit the news outlets. Keel called the man and had a conversation with him, where Keel was able to validate the story that Mary had told him. The man agreed to every detail he was told by Heyer and told him, "Look, don't use my name. I don't want to get involved in this thing. That scientist fella told me." Before the man could finish, Keel asked, "What scientist?" The man went on to explain that a few weeks after this event, a scientist from Ohio came to see him and his co-workers and told him to be quiet about the event and that, quote, "it would be better if you forgot the whole thing." The man claimed that his events happened on the same night on the same road in the same area as Woody Derenberger's event, but had zero idea at the time of Woody's story or anyone else's. Between police records and other newspaper and radio station records, there were at least 3 others from the exact same night, road, and area as these 2 events with strikingly similar details, 2 of which were reported before Woody contacted the police office. What do you guys think?
My lab.
My lab, huh?
Yeah.
Fake. No, I don't know. I
Jake.
don't have an opinion.
No, it sounds to me like there was probably an operation going on because it was in, all these people had the same, man, I just lost my train of thought. They had the same thing happen to them in the same place, roughly, right? So there's probably an operation going on. Some black budget alphabet agency was doing some, men in black shit. They were doing some my labs. They were probably, see, there's a thing about my labs where, they can wipe your memory. So, you could be abducted and then placed back, memory wiped, just like in the movie Men in Black, right? And
Yeah.
all you remember is just dudes in suits or whatever they want. They can even implant fake memories. So who really knows?
That's interesting.
Is there any actual evidence of that, or is that just something you're bringing out of your head?
Of my labs?
Yeah.
Oh, there's plenty of evidence.
But how would they know? Their memories have been wiped.
Well, it's not foolproof.
Okay.
People have had memories brought back through hypnosis and all kinds of other things as well, too. So
real quick, Jeff, because I can't remember if you had talked about my labs before on the show. Real quick, can you give everyone listening right now that may not be familiar with my labs exactly what you're talking
like
about?
Jake.
My labs are military abductions. So the idea is, and there's probably multiple ways that this could happen, but one of the main ways is either people get abducted by some extraterrestrial, and then after they're brought back, the military or the black budget alphabet agency, whatever it is, comes in and abducts you a second time to see what the aliens wanted. Then they can erase your memory, implant what they want you to remember, so on and so forth. Also, you don't have to necessarily be abducted by aliens first. It's my opinion that people who are abducted by quote unquote aliens, they're all my labs. I think that they're all black budget agencies abducting people for the purpose of implanting these false memories about aliens to perpetrate that, that idea through the ages, right?
And what would you think what's the foundational purpose for that? Right?
It's the same thing like we were talking about before we were recording with predictive programming, how they'll put stuff in the movies and in the shows to make us start to think that aliens are real and that aliens came, ancient aliens and this and that. So it's the same kind of idea. They could pick you up, implant some false memory, make you think that there was aliens. Now you might go do a lie detector test or whatever, and you believe 100% what you saw. And it's in order to get the masses to believe that there is aliens when there isn't.
So you're saying another build up to Project Bluebeam.
Yeah.
Asherz, what do you got?
Well, it's, so we had talked about, Woody the next day after he had met Indrid, was visited by people right from Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. So, this tells me, and it's hard because it's not like Keel, yes, Keel was taking notes during the time, but, while he was in Point Pleasant doing these investigations, doing the journalism, but it's not like he wrote Mothman Prophecies, that year or whatever. He had written it over time. I think he came out with it in 1974. Almost 10 years after the fact. So it could have been that that's something that was inserted into the story later on, knowing at that point that Woody had been visited by people from the base, or you got 2 separate people that don't know each other telling 2 separate stories that match up. So, I mean, who these people were, I don't, I think that, probably instead of Men in Black characters, which who knows, maybe maybe the Men in Black work for the Air Force or whatever. We don't know. I think that at minimum they probably were working for the base.
I think they're above all that. To be honest with you, we'll get into that a little bit later.
Sure.
Just to circle back, sorry, I
Yeah.
may have missed it or just fell out of my head. Was this before or after Woody's incident?
So the incident that he was referring to was immediately before. Well, they believe it was immediately before the Woody Derenberger incident. And there was, I didn't find it in the Mothman Prophecies. I found it in a different source, but it kind of met up pretty well that a lot of people think that the guy who went into Miss Hire's office was actually the car that originally passed Woody's car just before the very first incident with Indrid Colt.
Okay.
So this guy and his coworker would have had their incident immediately before and scared the shit out of them. They sped past him. They saw Woody in front of them. They flicked their lights. They went around him, and up comes Indrid's craft right behind that speeding car, getting ready to talk to the next person, which was Woody Derenberger.
So this tells me that Indrid didn't single out Woody, right? He was just looking for anybody that would listen so he could influence them or whatever it was he had in mind. And, so it tells me that, right? So that's credible to me. I think that checks out. And then it also tells me that for whatever reason, people in Ohio were taking great interest in this story. Whomever they were, but kind of coincidental that there's an entire base that happened to be the home for things like, Project Blue Book and you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. I think that also checks out and lends more credibility to the story.
I think just the general location of the story, in its proximity to Wright Patterson really helps Jeff's argument. And I'm not saying that's where I'm going with my final thoughts here or anything, because we're still got a lot of stuff to get through before we get to our final thoughts, but I'm interested to see what Jeff thinks of the rest of the stuff that's about to come up and see if he still has the same or if maybe he tweaks his final thoughts a little bit. You guys ready to jump into some more?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So real quick, the reason why I had asked, and it kind of just got, this spot or this theory just kind of got squished because of, it happening before Woody had his incident. And it was that, remember when we talked about aliens probably in season 2 maybe? And I had mentioned that there was one of the very first documented UFO sightings in the United States, and that the original investigation where the person, I think his last name was Kennedy, but he told the news station or the newspaper that he had seen a crescent moon shape in the sky. And then the newspaper went out and they put out an article saying that it was a pie pan. And then within, over the next month, like 300 people came out saying that they also saw a flying pie pan in the sky. And it was just hysteria and people trying to get their, their name in the paper. So if it was like, oh yeah, this is the exact same thing that happened, but it was, a week or 2 weeks after Woody had his thing, I would have been pretty quick to be like, Yeah. Because by that time, the next day it had been brought out on a radio broadcast, right? So people would have heard, a majority of what the story was. And so if they just copied that and said, yeah, this happened to me too, and be like, so it was just like that. But you said it was before, so.
Slightly.
Yeah.
Like minutes.
Well, even still, same day before, either way, before like the actual thing came out. I'm really skeptical when it comes to other people saying like, oh yeah, the exact same thing happened to me, the same conversation and everything. It's just like, well, even going into that, it's like, it couldn't have been the same conversation because some of that conversation was Indrid asking Woody like basic questions like, what's that over there? Is that where people live? You know, he wouldn't then
Yeah.
go and ask a different person the exact same questions, probably over and over and over again. So,
You know, I like that because when we were covering the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, the main characters in that, when they were being questioned under the base
mhm.
by, you know, that secret 3-letter organization,
Alphabet soup.
yeah, the Alphabet Soup, they had all come up with slightly different stories, and they weren't so drastically different. They just seemed to be from their, you know, somebody else's point of view.
Mhm.
So I see exactly what you're talking about. Now, like, I'm trying to take what you're saying, like, you know, you copy and paste. Now, if those 4 guys in the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident had just copy and pasted their answer all the way through, maybe it would have been a little sketchy.
Mhm.
So I see that, but I just wanted to also point out that I think that the episode, if anybody's listening right now and they want to go back and listen to the UFO episode that Jake was initially talking about, I think it's the Berkshire UFO incident one, very early season 2.
Yeah.
I think that's the one. Because I remember you talking about the pie pan, and then how the
I was like, this is
the
dumb.
media.
This is ridiculous. Yeah. Every single alien sighting ever has been based off of a Hollywood TV show, and before that, there was none. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that does happen. You know, I just sat down, which by the time everybody listens to this, it will have been out. Just sat down with Adam Benedict from the Pine Barrens Institute, and he, you know, I was telling you guys earlier, he kind of digs deep into some of these older news stories, and you know, not just the news stories themselves coming out on you know, early 1900s newspapers, but you know, the sightings and stuff that took place afterwards. You know, case in point, which, you know, he's named for, is the Jersey Devil, and basically how the Jersey Devil is a piece of American folklore, and kind of where that came from, where you had all these people. You know, you had a guy. It started off with a guy claiming that there were footprints that he found in and around his property, and then after that, that's when there was a flap of Jersey Devil sightings, and just making sure Jake's paying attention. But you know, but there was all these people reporting that they were seeing the Jersey Devil from that point. And you know, were they really seeing it, or was it just because, you know, in 1909 there isn't shit
They're
else
bored.
to do but to tell stories, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, were they really seeing this thing, or was it just because it was fun? You know, we know that people lie, and I'm sure people have probably lied since we could communicate with each other, right? And so,
Mhm.
you know, that is definitely topical and something that happens. When I interview groups of people who claim to have experienced the same thing, um, you know, one of the things that you know, that you learn in forensics when you're interviewing eyewitnesses is the way that you can tell a story's been kind of built up depends on their the way that they identify certain things. So, you know, like you're saying, you know, with that UFO incident originally, you know, it was reported as being that crescent shape in the sky. Then you have other people that will come forward and compare it to other things. Typically, when everybody reports it looking like the exact same thing, because we have the power of perception as humans, when they report it looking like the exact same thing, then it kind of takes away the credibility of it, because then it's rehearsed. It's more like they all sat around and said, "Oh yeah, we all saw this." It's
Yeah.
just like if you're trying to interview witnesses in a robbery, okay, and you have 3 people in the store that witness this robbery take place, and you're trying to figure out, well, are these 3 people related to the robber at all? So
Mhm.
you take on their description, and they go, "Oh, the guy was, you know, 6'2". He's probably 250 pounds. You know, he was wearing a black shirt, black pants." Well, person number one typically would go, "Oh, yeah, and he had, you know, he had a scar around his left eye." And then person number two goes, "Well, he was also wearing brown shoes with his black." You know, you look for those things that the other people, you don't want the accounts to be exactly the same, because again, the power of perception that we have in our brains, we focus individually on different things when we
Mhm.
take in things visually and auditorially. So that is something that, you know, we I do anyway in the field. I'm sure other people do too, to kind of see if a story is credible or not. So if it's described in these types of cases, if it's described exactly the same, then you kind of have to take pause and go, well, how do I know that you're not coming to me now after the fact? Because Woody's story was very publicized the next day. Everybody knew about it. So I think what Jake is asking more is, when did this guy come out about his story? Not so much when he encountered what we
Yes,
believe.
there you go.
But yes, when did he share his story?
So, according to Keel in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, he did come out a few days after his own incident, which would
Liar.
a few days
Right.
after it would come out a few days after
It was publicized.
Woody's. Yeah.
Right.
Now, I don't know or didn't know Miss Hire. I think she passed away
He
already.
did, yeah.
But from what I know from her and reading Keel and knowing that, if Keel trusts somebody, there's validity to their character. And if Miss Hire, who is a respected person of Point Pleasant, the person that a lot of people came to for news, or, if like we're going to get into later about the Silver Bridge,
Sure.
when the incident happened, a lot of people were trying to contact her to try to find out if their loved one was on the bridge and everything. She's a respected person. So if she's getting the feeling that this person didn't know about Woody Derenberger, you also got to remember that this was in the 60s, right? 66. And not everybody had a TV. Everybody had a radio, most likely, right? Was everybody listening to the radio?
Was this in the newspaper? Because everyone read their paper.
Well, right. Information didn't travel as fast. I think in small town, West Virginia or Ohio, or, just that area in general, I don't think it would have been a far stretch that he would know about the Woody story. I don't think that he would know that Woody was visited by people that work for the base.
True.
Mhm.
So I think that part is, because they were there during the, during the media talk that Woody had. They were there. I don't think anybody knew who they were except for police and Woody. And I mean, I don't think that the general public were like, oh, those are Air Force people from the base. I mean, I don't think that I don't think that was public knowledge at the time. So that detail to me, like I said, that again, that's credible.
I also think, if you go back to the original night when Woody came home and Catherine, his wife, sent him to the kitchen and sent the kids upstairs, and they were talking, and she was on the phone with the police officer, and the officer said, tell him not to be freaked out, or tell him to calm down. He's not the only person to report this night. I think that's also a big marker. And I'm not saying for this particular event, although this is one of the more popular ones from another person's point of view. We'll go over a few other ones, or actually I think we did last episode. They're all running together now. so much.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not going to count this as BS in my book. But I can see where you're not taking interest in this as being like a hard piece of evidence. Totally understand that. And I'm not saying that I'm going to really take it as a piece of hard evidence. I take it as a very interesting piece of evidence that can circumstantially fit something very interesting.
I mean, there's a possible shadow of doubt there. And, that's something that we have to acknowledge and go, yeah, well, okay, it's possible that he lied.
Very, very possible. And I will definitely admit to that.
It's not a hill I'm willing to die on, though. We can move on if you'd like.
I am also not willing to die on this hill either. All right. Jeff.
I'm here, bud.
Okay. You still on Amazon?
No, I'm listening. I mute my mic, so it took me a second to unmute.
Okay. All right. Love you too, buddy.
Thanks.
All right. Let's go into some more details, all right?
All right.
Just like with every other source of mine for this topic, there are details that are added with Keel's telling of Woody's story. Here's what I found. Mr. Cold was sporting a large grin and under his topcoat he was wearing a shiny metallic greenish shirt of some sort under his coat during the very first encounter with Woody. These particular details are common in many tellings of the story and have been quoted coming from Woody himself by many people. Keel goes on to add that a few people had come forward with hearing of Woody's story. Keel goes on to add that a few people had come forward after hearing of Woody's story and confirmed that they drove by him pulled over on the side of the road having a conversation with a man who didn't seem to have a vehicle. No one saw the craft hovering over Woody's position. Mr. Keel also has more info to add about the time surrounding when Woody appeared on the Long John Nebel's radio talk show. A year prior to the recording, Dr. Morgan, the doctor who administered the psychiatric test on Woody due to Nightcap's request, was watching a football game at his home when he began to feel a very strange sensation wash over him, in which he believed he was being caused by a craft hovering over his home. This was the beginning of his journey as a contactee. During the recording, Long John phoned Dr. Morgan and he reiterated his experiences since to Woody and the panelists, as well as anybody listening to the show that day. Let's go over some more strange instances really quick. There were many other instances from the book The Mothman Prophecies that could have been tied into the events of Indrid Cold or the Mothman, or both. One strange occurrence was the fact that many people reported door-to-door salesmen traveling the area selling different things at each door. Sometimes it was appliances, sometimes Bibles, sometimes shoes, and sometimes they would claim that they were quote-unquote census takers. This strangeness wouldn't be too strange if it weren't for the fact that many claimed to talk to their neighbors immediately after this group visited both houses to find that they were selling something completely different to their neighbor. These quote-unquote salesmen would always ask particular questions, some such as, how many children were in the house? They always seemed to be very interested in the children. One woman was even going around claiming to be John Keel's secretary. She would give those who had been subjects of Keel's a form with questions about their personal lives and the events in which they saw the UFOs. John Keel does and did not ever have a secretary. And the most curious thing about this quote-unquote secretary of Keel's is that she even visited the people that Keel never wrote about, meaning the ones that wanted to stay anonymous. These visitors would most often show up at people's homes shortly after the witness's event. To Keel, this was textbook Men in Black activity. Now, when I read this, I thought to myself, this sounded like people who were checking out houses to steal from. But then, I remembered that in Woody's book, Visitors from Lanulos, there was a time when Catherine Derenberger, Woody's wife, answered the door and two men, who turned out to be Indrid Cold and Demo Hassan, were attempting to sell her a vacuum. This ended up being her first face-to-face contact with the Lanulosians. Another strange incident that you read about all throughout Keel's book is the act of people attempting to talk on their personal phones and being interrupted by loud beeping and winding sounds. This did happen to Keel himself a lot, but was not specific to him alone. This happened to a lot of the people who talked about in his book, and many of them called the phone company to have them run a check of their wiring, and every time they came back with no problems. Sooner or later, Keel ended up finding out that his line was being tapped by a sort of mechanism. The strangeness with the phones didn't end there. This sound would be heard even when people would receive calls with no one answering on the other end. Some people, even Woody himself, went as far as getting a new number and leaving it unlisted. But that didn't help, as the sound continued to find them. One more strange piece of evidence about this sound is seen to only affect those that were either contactees or those that witnessed UFOs in the sky. Another quick thing to know about the Ohio Valley area in 1966 and 67 is that Keel highlighted in his book that there was a small explosion of animal mutilations at the time. Dogs, cats, rabbits, cows, deer, horses were all being left dead randomly around the valley with all the blood removed from them. There was no blood to be found around them, and in most cases, they had a large hole cut into the animal, sometimes in the head, removing the brain, sometimes in the chest, removing the heart, and sometimes in completely random places. One particular case was very interesting, and that was the night that someone found a dog charred to a crisp in one of the abandoned buildings of the TNT area, the area synonymous with being the favorited area of the Mothman, just prior to the real snap of Mothman sightings and events throughout the Ohio Valley. So was this the Mothman's doing? Indrid Cold's? Or another completely unrelated set of events? Let's talk about it. Asherz, you lead us off.
Okay. So one thing that has since come out about some of these experiences that Keel was personally having, is that some of the other researchers, Gray Barker being one of them, I can't remember the other guy's name right now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, they admitted to being responsible for some of that stuff. They actually
Really?
oh yeah, they admitted to making like phone calls to him and putting on voices or just not saying anything and hanging up and things like that. So that makes it hard. I think that Keel genuinely believed that this stuff was happening. Keel, he got involved in the area and what was going on. I mean, he was there not for Indrid Cold, he was there for the Mothman stuff. After
Mm-hmm.
he had heard of the Scarberry sighting that kind of blew up the whole Mothman thing to begin with, because he was working for a newspaper in New York at the time, and he was kind of tracking there was like a boom, I'm sorry, a flap of
There,
UFO
yes,
sightings.
thank you.
um, that was happening, throughout. It was all the way up from Michigan, through on down to, Illinois, Indiana, through Ohio and Kentucky, West Virginia. It was kind of, there was like this track that was happening. So he was there for all of that stuff. He came across the Indrid Cold story because he was there investigating high strangeness in the area. But it's hard to know now how much of that was accurate, knowing that other researchers were messing with them, because we kind of talked about and touched on a little bit in one of the other episodes about how it had later came out that Gray Barker possibly didn't believe any of this stuff, right? And so which isn't unheard of with a lot of these famous investigators. I mean, most of us are skeptics, and that's how we're able to stay sane doing our jobs. But then it kind of throws a wrench at the whole thing. I think that a lot of it was accurate. I think there was definitely something going on there. I don't think that there was anything to the flap. And that's
Mm.
kind of where my job where my job picks up, right? I don't think that it ever was. A colleague of mine had mentioned something about, and it was just like on Twitter or something, and they were like, man, there was just so much weird stuff happening in the 60s. And the only time when I started doing this, I thought the same thing. I'd started working, one of my original theories, I'd started working on a timeline of events of these things happening, and how they kind of peaked in the 60s and then started kind of trailing off. But what I'd found was that there was also weird stuff that happened in the 50s and also weird stuff that happened in the 70s. And then from there,
Mm-hmm.
in my own research, come to find out it never stopped and started. It never did. And I think Keel in his later years also came to that conclusion. But at the time of him, doing all that research, I think because he was really in it and really submerged in it, you kind of get caught up in the excitement, I guess. But I don't think that there was anything. I think that I think demographically, there are concentrated areas of high strangeness. I don't think that there are time periods where things are particularly strange.
Hmm.
That's what
So
I said a lot. I know. I'm sorry.
no. I'm just going back to the Gray Barker possibly running these pranks on
Yeah,
John Keel. It possibly.
sure.
I can see that because from what I know about Gray Barker, I don't know too much about him. But what I'm hearing from other people, and everyone's got to remember that the whole Fortean community is cutthroat.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is, and I'm sure it was back then
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And Gray Barker, from what I understand, was one of the worst when it came to making sure that he got his time on the stand,
Absolutely.
that he got his time in the limelight, sold his books, made his cash, and moved on with his life. Totally can see that happening. And I also read a couple places that he also did attempt to manipulate things on Keel. And sometimes Keel had caught him trying to do some stupid shit.
Yeah, they had a very frenemy type of relationship.
Right.
And so, and like I said, we know that now. So yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. But then again, maybe Keel was experiencing these things, and later Gray Barker comes out and says, "Oh, that was me," just to
Because he
kind of
wanted the fucking attention.
exactly, just to kind of take
Yeah.
away the credibility from Keel. So it's hard to say, exactly what was happening. Maybe Keel did get a couple of weird phone calls, and Gray then ran with it, and maybe he was some of them, but not all of them. We don't really have a way to know. What that, and this isn't, it's not new information. It's kind of like for some people that start getting into this stuff, it's kind of like when Jake found out that all the pictures of space were fake. It hurts your feelings, right? You're like, oh, Gray Barker didn't believe in this.
I'll never recover from that.
But
Jeff talked about it on his show this week too. Hilarious.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it's very heartbreaking. I understand, but like Charles Fort, where the term Fortean comes from. And I'm gonna tell you this right now: if you don't know who any of these people are and you're interested in these topics, stop listening to the show and go pick up a book written by any of these people, because it's kind of important information. But Charles Fort, he was very open about the fact that he was skeptical of these things. He's like, I just know that we don't know shit. Basically, it's pretty much what he said. Actually, I think there's like a quote of his that says something about the only thing that he knows for sure is that he's going to wake up and have breakfast or something like that.
Yeah.
Because he just got to the point to where he's like, yep, strange things are happening. Science doesn't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening, and we're just not meant to know. And that's that. Like I said, a lot of these people in this field are skeptics. And also, you're right, very cutthroat. Because it is such a niche community, you don't have, it's not like, it's not like I walk out my front door and there's, fangirls screaming and, yelling my name and everybody wants my autograph. And it doesn't work that way. So I know, shocking,
I'm done.
right? He's like, that's why I do
If
this.
I can't have that, I'll have nothing.
I know there's no money and no other benefit to it. Just we just do it for fun, apparently. But yeah, so you're gonna get a lot more kind of cattiness within the community, I feel like, because the only thing that you have is clout, and I don't think that has ever changed.
We're gonna move beyond that.
Okay.
We need to do an episode on Charles Fort just to lay that down, because that is something that the listeners of the Infinite Rabbit Hole should know.
Yeah.
They should know who Charles Fort is. It probably would be more historical, and I don't know how much of an episode we can really get into it, but that is where the birth name of the title of Fortean investigators or Fortean topics, that's where it comes from Charles Fort. A lot of people know like just the very top of Charles Fort and his interest, and they automatically think Bigfoot, aliens, and ghosts, right? And that's it. That's all Charles Fort was into, and that's completely wrong. He was also into things such as cryptometeorology, interdimensional travel, anything strange. Basically, the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast is a Fortean podcast.
And nobody knows, I had somebody on my show recently, and we had kind of had a sidebar conversation, and he was like, well, I just call myself a paranormal, and I do a lot of cryptozoology, but I just call myself a paranormal investigator. And it's like, because he's using that as a blanket term. And I'm like, my guy, that one already exists, right? It's Fortean.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knows what that means. They ask me, what's a Fortean investigator? I'm like, how do you study any of this and you guys don't know where that comes from? I mean, what,
Right.
so I agree. Again, there's not enough exposure for Charles Fort. So that's,
There really isn't. And never mind. We got to
yes,
get
I'm
back
sorry.
onto the
Yes.
Mothman.
Continue. Yeah,
Oh,
no, John Keel and his high strangeness that he was experiencing, plus what was kind of going on in the area and the themes there.
right. So Jeff, Jake, you guys got anything for this section?
Yeah. I mean, I still same theory applies for me here because a lot of this sounds um, like a program happening. You know, people just being
Mhm.
duped or tested on. Now, I agree that there could be pranks happening, right? So a lot of this could have been like pranks. I guess that's kind of what you guys are saying. Uh, but you know, the whole Wright Patterson Air Force Base and all the connections going back, Hangar 18, all that stuff. It just really makes me think that there's some program going on to seed this alien agenda.
Yeah, and I don't put any weight into animal mutilations as far as like surrounding UFO type things. Like it's pretty insane if you don't think that people can do this sort of stuff. Like there's some sick heartless monsters out there that love nothing better than to mutilate animals for the heck of it, for fun or for pranks. Like, and it seems to be like, oh yeah, there was this popular UFO sighting, and then there's a bunch of dead animals that were found around it. Yeah, it sounds. I mean, it sounds like a cookie cutter type event to me, of just like, you know, that's just what happens. That's what people do. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like it's. I don't, put a lot of weight into that because I'm like, well, people are sick, or some people are,
Yeah.
and then the wiretapping would definitely. Gosh, Jeff's narrative Jeff's the narrative he's pushing, uh, it makes a tremendous amount of sense with all the details that are coming out that could be, yeah, they could be, uh, geez, I can't even pronounce that word. Lanulogians. That's it.
There you go. Yeah, that'll work.
Lanulogians, checking up on the neighborhood and all that sort of stuff. Or it could be people pushing a narrative, wiretapping everyone's phones, making sure that they believe it, showing up at their house, asking random questions, doing all these sorts of things, checking up and checking up and checking up. I mean, it could go either way. But for me, I tend to lean more towards the not, alien type direction or interdimensional type direction. I mean, newsflash to a lot of people, the government sometimes lies to people, and maybe that's more often than just sometimes. Whether it's quote unquote for our safety or our own good or whatever it is, very rarely are they 100% truthful on anything, no matter which side it is. And so it's, they all have their agenda, they all have their narrative. This circumstance, if it's true what Jeff is talking about, this, project that's being pushed, this project narrative, and this whole, sprinkling of the idea of aliens and extraterrestrials, they sure as heck are doing a lot of work into making sure that people believe this crap. If that's the direction it's going, and if it's not, if it's, extraterrestrials or interdimensionals that are visiting us and stuff, I mean, the same could be said. So I'm kind of like right in the middle right now, but I know what I believe and I know what I don't believe, but I'm trying not to have an extreme bias right now. I'm trying to just allow, all the different ideas and stuff. And I'm writing down my notes, and yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe I might be able to change your mind. Or maybe
Unlikely.
Keel can change your mind. All right. Move along. TikTok, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about Jane.
Yeah, Jane.
In his book, John Keel tells of a woman he met who he refers to as Jane, which many people have concluded was a woman by the name of J.P. Paro, who Keel refers to as a contact he had that put him in touch with Jane. But for this, we're just going to refer to her as Jane as Keel did, since we do not have the proof that this was in fact Miss Paro. Jane lived near an area known as Mount Misery in Huntington, New York. Keel goes on to describe Mount Misery as a very heavily wooded hill with a few dirt roads. with a number of mysterious deaths and disappearances. Jane and her boyfriend had been sucked into all the mysteries and disappearances that all the locals were talking about, and decided to drive up to Mount Misery one night and investigate for themselves. At one point in the night, they find themselves driving down a back road when her boyfriend Richard begins to complain of not feeling very well. After he pulls the car over, he slumps over the steering wheel and falls unconscious. And what seems to be right on cue, a bright light engulfs the car, and the next thing either of them know, they are driving on Old County Road at the bottom of Mount Misery with no recollection of how they got there or what happened after the light appeared. A few days later, her phone rang, and an unknown voice told her to go to the local library and find a particular book and read page 42. The next day, she did as the caller asked, and when she got there, she met a very strange librarian who was dressed in clothes from the 40s. Jane described this lady as having a darker complexion with a fine bone structure and very black eyes and hair. When she asked her for the book she was looking for, the librarian reached under the desk and pulled out the exact book as if she was waiting for Jane. As she sat down and turned to page 42, the print literally transformed into another text telling her why she was selected and that the author had messages concerning Earth and her people. When the author explained that she was allowed to tell one other person, but no more than that, and it was signed, "Be in peace, Apal." As she finished reading, the text transformed back to normal. Soon after she left the library, she became very ill and soon got in touch with John Keel to pass on her story. Keel tells of how he held a bit of info from her about a distant contactee who was in contact with an Apali. Keel saw the signature at the end of Jane's reading of Apal was similar to Afali's and wanted to see if she was going to lead him down a familiar path. A couple of weeks later, Jane claimed to have been seeing the librarian everywhere she went. One particular encounter with this woman was worrisome to Jane. She was in a local department store when the librarian came out from behind a rack and began to speak in broken English, and still wearing the same outfit from a few weeks ago. She began laughing hysterically when Jane asked her if she lived around the area that they were in. The lady then asked Jane, quote, "Is there any AU here?" Keel took this as she was asking for gold, since the symbol for gold on the periodic table is the letters AU. Jane was unable to sleep that night and got up early and headed out for a walk. The librarian stepped out from an alley and told Jane that, quote, "Peter is coming." And Jane remembered that Catholics believed that the final pope was going to be named Peter. Now, a little side note. The only reference I could find to this was from the fictional novel The Roman Peter II, The Last Pope by George R. Arus Matis.
Is this why you called me up the other day asking me if I knew anything about Catholicism?
Yeah, this is it.
Okay.
Just after a large black Cadillac with an olive-skinned driver stopped next to the woman, and a very tanned man who was dressed like a very important person stepped out of the vehicle with a large grin on his face. He shook her hand and introduced him as Paul. Paul gave Jane a folded up piece of paper with a very small disc inside and told her to always keep it on her to let the really good people know who she was. Jane went ahead and mailed the gift to John Keel, and Keel was very unimpressed with neither of the paper or disc, which was the size of roughly a quarter. But when Keel mailed it back to her, Jane received a package with a disc bent in half. This did interest Keel, as he believed that whoever had given it to Jane had access to the mail system and was able to access things in closed-off packaging. The reason why he was interested in this was because he had either mailed off or was mailed very important things dealing with his investigations that failed to reach their intended destination, even though the packaging was fine. Another month later, and after regular visits with Paul and a few others, she was presented with 3 pills. One for now, one for in 2 days, and a third for her to have someone dissect for her assurance that there isn't anything harmful in it. She turned the pill over to Keel, of course, who had it tested, and it came out that the contents proved to be a drug normally prescribed for infection of the urinary tract. After she took the first pill, she contracted a terrible headache and lost sight in her right eye. 2 days later, she took the second pill, with no side effects. The same day, a man claiming to be Colonel John Dalton of the Air Force called her at her house and told her he wanted to meet with her at her place. And a day later, without giving him her address, he showed up with a young lieutenant on his side. The man claimed to be Dalton asked her what she knew of a flying saucer that had landed nearby, and Jane replied with a chuckle and told him that she didn't believe in such things. The man responded by opening his briefcase and pulling out a packet of paperwork for her to fill out. When she refused to do so, he told her it was fine as long as she just signed it. She replied, "Now, that would be pretty stupid." Soon after this, Paul began using Jane as the middleman for contacting Keel. He told Jane to tell Keel some very serious and compelling things that ended up coming true. Just remember, the date of the publication for this book was June 23rd, 1975. These things he told Keel were things would become more serious in the Middle East. As we are very aware, conflict in the Middle East never really ended and has been ongoing since before the book was published and long after. 2, the Antichrist would rise up out of Israel. This is yet to come true as far as we know. 3, the Pope would head to the Middle East soon and be knifed to death. Pope John Paul I died on September 28, 1978, after only holding the position for 33 days. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but there are many, including others in high-standing positions in the Catholic Church, who believe that he was murdered, and the list of possible murders is pretty impressive. Some include Cardinal Sebastiano Baggio, as Pope John Paul I had him removed from the congregation after being warned of Baggio by many others. Many different members of the Vatican Bank, due to many believing that the new Pope was going to investigate the internal scandals between the Vatican Bank and organizations such as the Freemasons, the Mafia, and many others in need of money laundering. 3, the CIA. And 4, others who believed that John Paul was going to restore the traditional Latin Mass as the norm for the Catholic Church. Another prediction given to Keel from Paul was that the Vatican was planning to send food and supplies to Arab refugees. This came true shortly after Keel received the info, but before the book was released, so this is pretty hard for us to confirm. The most famous prediction was that there was going to be a tragedy on the Ohio River, likely an explosion at a plant of some sorts on the bank of the river. This we will talk about soon. The next few were given to Keel after he met her in person and put her under hypnosis and had control of the session taken away as Jane started to speak to him, claiming that she was Paul herself. These are the predictions given to Keel at this time. There was a pending plane crash. According to Keel, this also came true, but again, hard to confirm with lack of more info and events happening before publication of the book. 2, Robert Kennedy was in trouble. Robert Kennedy died on June 6, 1968, years before the publishing of this book, so it is hard to determine the authenticity of this prediction as well. As one of Keel's last statements about Jane and Paul was that he had to simply think of a question, and Jane would call him soon with an answer from Paul. So, you may be asking why I included the story of Jane. There's a couple reasons. The paralleling descriptions of Paul and Indrid. That's one. Two, the incident on the Ohio River prediction, which we'll talk about here soon. That's pretty much it. Like, I just wanted you guys to see that there was another character out there similar to Indrid that somebody else was claiming to be in contact with. Olive skin, black hair, black eyes, speaks telepathically. So what do you guys think?
So that's the thing about people claiming to tell the future and stuff. Like,
Right.
some of these events wouldn't have happened for a couple of years, so it would be hard to say, like, hey, this person's telling the truth. Or they're just or they're lying, especially if it's some wild prediction way in the future. Like, but things like it'll become more serious in the Middle East. Great, an area that's been at war for 2,000 years. It's going to get serious, guys. The Antichrist will rise up out of Israel. That's interesting. The Pope would be knifed to death. And if he's, hey, he died of a heart attack. I mean, people can say whatever they want, right? It doesn't make it true that he was murdered or something, but unless he was obviously knifed to death, then there's an issue there. Let's see. The Vatican is planning to give food and supplies to Arab refugees. The Christian organizations and Catholic organizations pretty much rule the world when it comes to charitable donations, as far as orphanages and humanitarian relief and assistance and stuff. So that even in itself is not a crazy far stretch. It just, like, a lot of these quote unquote predictions are either very vague, or they're like saying at some point this is going to happen, or something like, here's this political figure and oh no, they're in trouble. Like, that could mean literally anything. It's like he comes down with a stomach virus and be like, see, I told you, I told the future, right? Or I predicted the future. All that stuff is just, pretty much nonsense. I mean, unless it came true, in which case it'd be like, okay, this is definitely something. But in this circumstance, it definitely sounds like someone's just having a kind of like a copycat story, and just to make it more valid, they're saying, oh, but they told me about all this stuff that's coming in the future, and then maybe a couple of them actually happened. But you really have to reach to say that this was predicted. So I don't know.
Agreed. I'm taking Jake's side on this one.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna take up with Jake also. These are very these aren't, hard hitting predictions. Now, if somebody, comes to me and they go, hey, on November the 7th of 2024, it's going to rain cats and dogs, and then that day comes around and it rains cats and dogs, then I'll be impressed. But as far as like these people that predict things go in general, I don't know. I'm just not a fan. Not a big fan of that.
I am also going to take Jake's side.
Wow, winning the whole crowd tonight. Yeah.
It's a flap.
Yeah, it's a flap. It's just a flap. Well, 'cause, I mean, people got to be really careful with that sort of stuff, like who they're going to believe, as far as, like, even if this was a real person that said all this stuff, people really need to be careful and watch themselves. Like, how many, and I hate to call it the Christian church in this circumstance, but it's true. How many self-proclaimed prophets came up and said that Trump was going to win the election, that God told them that he was going to win the election? And as soon as the results came out and he didn't, they lost their ministry, they lost their careers, they stepped down, all sorts of stuff. And people were just all over that. Oh, God said this, because this self-proclaimed prophet said this, and then came out to be, made up, or it was a lie, or it was their ego talking, or whatever, But it's just like, people really need to be careful when it comes to someone, I don't know, who knows what the nefarious reason is or non-nefarious reason, but the, trust me because I can tell the future. Here's some super vague circumstances that may or may not happen in the future. I'd be wanting to know that if this is a real person and not just some cookie cutter type, like, or a copycat story, and then here's this random person that I'm lying about to have some validity behind this story that I'm making up. If this was a real person, like, what was their intention with contacting Jane, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, and before we got to this portion of it, you were talking about like the little metal disc that she got, and then she sent that to Keel, and then it came back to her, and it was bent in half. And the first thing I thought of was just like, I mean, easy. I get stuff that's bent in half in the mail all the time, but if it was in a box, then that's a little bit, yeah, like, $50 set of gaskets, and they're all smashed into my mailbox. No big deal. Thanks, Amazon. But whatever. But there's just like, but if it's in a box, all right, that's a different story. But if these people are being watched, if this is all on Jeff's point of view, if this is all some sort of narrative that's being pushed and these people are being watched, then what makes them think that the same people that aren't tapping their phones aren't also then going through their mail and opening up their boxes to see what they're sending, and bending a small metal disc in half to see, what it's made out of, or, whatever, and then just be like, oh, it's nothing, package it back up and send it in there. They'll never know. Put a new piece of tape on it. Ooh, like,
Right. Yeah.
like, whoa, what a stretch. They could never do that. But then you got into this part, and I'm just like, okay, well, this just sounds more like a Mel's Hole type story now.
You got to understand, this is the end of everything. So this is where,
yeah, for sure.
On another episode, this is where I'm just throwing all this extra stuff in here, right? All the other stuff that people have heard around Indrid Cold, right? About how Indrid Cold could be tied in with this Paul character, and I'm putting the facts that I find coming directly from Keel's writing into the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're putting it on the table so we can talk about it, basically putting it down. And that's basically, I knew when I was writing this stuff up that this was going to be something that we didn't think was going to be a part of the actual piece of the story.
Well, and that's what I put in my notes too. I was curious about what other types of events surrounded this, because it seems fishy to me that this extraterrestrial, or this being, shows up to only Woody. Actually, we had talked about in a previous episode that he was cheating on Woody with another relationship with some other humans, but but that he, what are the other circumstances? Were there other Lanulosians that appeared to other people, and are they still doing that? How long did the relationship last? So I mean, it is valid. It is important to talk about, because it adds that depth to the story. If there's other contacted people and there's other events going on just around, we're talking about Woody and his experience, and Taunia growing up with this experience and all that sort of stuff, and that's that's great. But it's like, what's all the other stuff around that? What were their neighbors experiencing, all that? So this is all valid.
Well, I'm happy you see that way.
I think it's really important stuff. I think that Keel, with his weird paranoia about the mail and whatnot, I think it was just that. I think it was just paranoia. But I think that the story, it's not a secondhand account relayed to Keel. It's something that he was, he had spoken with Jane and had actively, investigated, which helps, I feel like. However, at the time period, again, I think that mental health has to be taken into account, because I think that he was experiencing, kind of some madness, and I don't necessarily blame him, because when you when you get into this stuff and you start really investigating it, and you start going to the places, and you start having people share their encounters with you, also start to experience things, and I can't really. I guess it's hard to explain. You kind of end up having weird sensations of knowing, I guess, which, if you go to a therapist and you tell them that you have these weird sensations of knowing, you're deemed crazy, but you're not, you're well-rounded individuals, and
Yeah.
You kind of reel it back in, and you're like, I do it all the time. I'm like, this is what I do for a living, but like also. Like I'm pretty normal-ish, considering the fact, I'm a parent. I have a child, and I go to parent-teacher conferences and do all that stuff, and I live my normal life. And
You're not out there mutilating cattle.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I know, surprising, right? But I know I personally have gotten swept up in some of the weird things that happen, and I can't really explain to you why or how I know why, or it's very weird. And so I can understand Keel kind of falling into some paranoia. Let me tell you a quick story. I keep sidebarring, but this is really interesting. My mother is I'll tell you, she's a medical lab tech, right? And so my mom, and she's really good at what she does. She travels around to area hospitals training the technicians on equipments and things like that. My mom, out of the blue, was propositioned by Right Pat. I live in Dayton, Ohio. She was propositioned by Right Pat to come work for them. She hadn't applied.
Mhm.
And the things that they were offering her, I mean, they offered her an extra $5 an hour raise, which my mom's capped. She's been doing this for a very long time. And they offered her like an insane amount of vacation time. I don't remember the exact numbers. It was just a job that was like way too good to be true.
Mhm.
And then, she, like I said, contacted out of the blue with this. They offered her the position and she was thinking about it, but didn't really answer in about 2 weeks. And within that 2 week time period, an old coworker that she hasn't worked with in 20 years contacted her out of nowhere. And it's not somebody she talks to. It's somebody she hasn't talked to in 20 years and is
Mhm.
telling her, you need to go work at this job. And it scared the hell out of me. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. I'm like, is this because of
Hmm.
me? Is this because I'm investigating the base? Are they trying to like threaten me and get my mom involved? Is this, something? And I've seen like helicopters and I'm like, is that for me? And is it crazy? It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. I live by the base. I'm gonna see aircraft. It's gonna happen. Right. But at the
F-18.
same time, right. I mean, at the same time, if you believe in this stuff, then you really have to consider the possibilities, in your mind, you have to make it make sense. But it's not unusual for people like myself, for people like Keel to experience some type of paranoia surrounding it. Because again, if you're saying that there is a conspiracy going on and you believe in it, then why wouldn't it happen to you?
Mhm.
But because of that, because we have that mental element there, we have to really take a step back and go, okay, this isn't really because of me, right? Like this isn't really, with my mom, I don't know, she didn't take the job. I'm glad she didn't. But it was very weird. And I still think it was very weird. But I didn't really go off the deep end and I'm not trying to claim that it is because of me, but I don't know, it could have been. Um, so I can relate. I can understand where Keel's coming from. Was there anything to this whole male conspiracy? Probably not. It's probably just because, again, he was swept up in kind of the hysteria, the excitement of everything going on, and so in his mind, and when that happens as an investigator, your mind starts racing and you start theorizing a lot. And you kind of pick up theories and in hindsight you end up putting them back down again.
Mhm.
But and I think that Keel actually did a lot of that once he kind of left the area and kind of left that area alone for a while. He never really redacted things. He just never really went back and dug further into certain things, and I think that's because he came to terms with, well, you know what, I think that was bullshit probably. So I don't know, that's just my 2 cents on it from somebody that actively does what Keel does.
Nice.
Well, right on.
There's that.
What do you think their code name is for you?
For me,
Ginger.
Yeah,
Ginger
the guy
snaps.
in the helicopters. I'm thinking Big Red. That's
Big Red.
yeah, something about red or ginger, ginger snap. I don't know, something. Probably
Ginger flap.
ginger flap.
I'm sorry. It's a funny word. All right.
No,
It's
it
like
fucking better be now.
it's like
I will be so
people.
disappointed if it's not.
It's like moist. I laugh when I hear that word. A lot of people don't like it. I laugh. I'm like, that's funny. It's a funny word.
No, it's yeah, I don't know. It's something about being a redhead for sure.
Mission Control. I found the Big Red Dog.
Big Red Dog.
Yeah, Clifford. That's right. Yeah,
Clifford, yeah. Something like that. I don't know.
Want me
It's
to-
a
do you
weird
want me
thing.
to take the shot? All right. I'm going too far.
No, it's
Too
okay.
far.
It's
Here,
all
I
right.
got-
Too far.
Hey everybody, bear with us while we take this quick break.
Hey guys, I'm Asherz,
And I'm Pat O.
and every Wednesday we talk weird. It's a weekly podcast bringing you the latest in
cryptozoology,
ufology,
conspiracies,
the occult,
and all the latest in Fortean news. Everything from the ooky to the spooky.
It's like Coast to Coast AM for people who fuck.
Search for On Wednesdays We Talk Weird anywhere you get podcasts. See you guys next Wednesday.
One of the most popular nicknames associated with Indrid Cold is the Grinning Man. Some also refer to him as the Smiling Man. The name the Grinning Man forces you to believe that Indrid Cold is a man who, get this, grins a lot. Maybe all the time. This is both true and not proven to be true. Let me explain. The Grinning Man title is given to an entity that seems to follow and even chase down people in the streets and sports a cynical-looking grin from ear to ear. The reports of the quote-unquote Grinning Man began on October 16th, 1966. Two boys by the names of Martin Mouse Munov and Jimmy Yonkaitis were walking home along a chain-link fence on 4th Street in Elizabeth, New Jersey, when the boys discovered a very tall man with no hair wearing a shiny green suit staring at them with a very big grin on the other side of the fence. The man chased the boys until the boys eventually were able to lose him. The boys later would report that the man's face was very strange and seemed to lack a nose and ears. This is the event that would give the entity the name of the Grinning Man. John Keel outlines a story that may have been associated with this being in his book, The Mothman Prophecies. He tells of how in around 1962, a man by the name of Don Estrella was walking home to his apartment when he became aware of a man following him. Unlike the man a few years later in Jersey, this man was short and had tanned skin and wore a long coat, but just like the man who chased the children, he sported a large evil grin. In my opinion, these two stories and others of the Grinning Man seem to not be of Indrid Cold. The story that takes place in New Jersey and a select few others seems to be a story involving a paranormal entity that is rarely seen in the US. And of course, I'm talking about Spring-Heeled Jack. More on Spring-Heeled Jack in a future episode of Infinite Rabbit Hole. The story that includes the man being followed to his house may seem more like Indrid Cold with his bronze skin and long coat, but the stalker being short is a dead giveaway that this was not Indrid, and instead may have been a different being altogether. Now you may hear this and think, it sounds like a typical stalker story, and not much to compare. But stories of the Grinning Man typically follow one of three paths when it comes to the perpetrator's MO and physical description. Two of those being the two we just went over. Many different stories involving a spring-heeled Jack type person sporting a large grin, and many others involve a short man in a large coat, also sporting a large grin. Now the third one, I do believe could very well be our Lanulosian. This story involves a girl by the name of Linda Lilly, who lived in Point Pleasant at the time of her encounter. She was a teenager living with her parents in 1967, when she had awoken one night to a tall man standing over her. The man's face was half covered by the shadow casted by her window shade, but she could clearly see a very large grin spread out along his face. When the man started to walk around her bed, she screamed and hid under the blankets, only to come back out a few minutes later and the man was gone. This story has two things that stand out the most to me as possibly being Indrid Cold. The time and place, which was 1967 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. That's correct. And all other stories that I could find of these tall, athletic, able to jump 6 foot tall, chain link fence Indrid Colds and short tanned wearing their uncle's overcoat Indrids take place in plenty other parts of the country. The tall one typically around the Atlantic seaboard, and the short one dang near everywhere. But Linda Lilly's story may be the only story of this quote-unquote grinning man actually being described as Indrid Cold. So, what do you guys think?
Sounds creepy.
Very
It
creepy.
is.
I'm siding with Jeff on this one.
Yeah. Creepy. I don't think that any of those are Indrid.
Even the Linda Lilly one?
Yeah,
Nah.
I don't. Even though and we kind of talked the last time we recorded off air about this. I had one person that I had come to me say that they believe that they were visited by Indrid as a little girl. Said that she was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and she remembers that it was late at night. She was in bed, and this grinning man came to her and touched the small of her back. And to this day, she's a paranormal investigator. Whenever she is investigating and something's happening, she feels it in the small of her back where he touched.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't sound like Indrid to me either. Just because, all of those instances have one thing in common, and they're, described as evil or unsettling or what have you. And Indrid was not ever described that way
Right.
by the Derenbergers and as a matter of fact, he was very friendly. I mean, it wasn't an evil smile. It was a friendly, hey, how you doing? And I don't think that he would approach anybody, that way, because I think he probably knows enough about us to know that, he's trying to come off as non-threatening. Which of course maybe there's been trial and error and he's just testing the waters and seeing what happens. Do you want me to share the Marietta, Ohio, the basement story?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can.
Go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I did the Paranormal Expo at the Lafayette Hotel in Marietta, Ohio. And, as we know, Marietta was where Woody Derenberger was driving home from and met Indrid right there in Parkersburg. And what I mean by right there is so I would go on the roof of the Lafayette Hotel, and it's right on the Ohio River. And I mean, right there across the river is Parkersburg, right across the bridge. And so, I mean, it's right there. So I go to this expo and I speak and I do my thing. And at the end of it, the event organizer comes up to me, and I didn't know who this person was. And she's, calling me over. She's like, "Oh my God, Ashley, I got to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." So I come over to her, and she was like, "Well, I just want to know if you had any updates on your Indrid, investigation." And I was like, "Well, I talked to Taunia, but I'm not sure what you mean exactly." She's like, "Well, I just wanted to tell you that, this hotel's really haunted, right? And everybody knows it's haunted. And most of the spirits are nice, and they're not very, they just do kind of mischievous things. Like there's a story that goes around about how one ghost might have stolen a guy's sandwich or something. Very silly, very harmless." She said, "But then there's the basement, and we have in the basement, is in the pipe room, which is where all the piping leads to in the basement." She says people down there, when they go down there, they report being, hit and kicked and scratched and hair pulled and, these horrible things. And she says, "And we've actually taken pictures down there, and a couple of pictures have shown this thing. And a couple of people, when they see this thing, we've nicknamed it the Grinning Man." She said, "And I just thought that was kind of weird given the area. And, the fact that Indrid is also known as the Grinning Man." She's like, "So I don't know, maybe you want to head down there." And, and I thought that was interesting. Now, we did go down there. We're going to go back, but we went down there for a minute. I found the pipe room, and there, there's a door that specifically says pipe room. And I went to go open the door, and right before my hand touched the door, it locked. So I left. I was not about to stay around
Tiptoe
for
through
that.
the tulips started playing, and
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, no, thank you." Well, that was another thing she said, was that it'll lock people in rooms down there, and I'm like, "No, fucking not today. I'm not. No, I'm tired. I just spent this whole day doing this event. I'm gonna go home." Like I said, we'll go back. But I thought that I did think that was interesting. That she had mentioned that, and it kind of has the same description, and we were kind of talking about other, kind of evil entities. Also, the Hat Man's another famous one that has that scary grin sometimes. And so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the connection is, if there is a connection at all. I don't think there is. Again, I would like to believe that Indrid is nice, for the most part, that he's a pretty okay guy. I think he's a bad influence on his friends, but we all are, so it's fine. But and maybe that's because I'm too close to the story to think anything else. Because the only person that I can go off of is Taunia and what she says about him. And I mean, she likes him. So I just don't see him being also this malevolent entity that just pops up and terrorizes people in a hotel basement or, wherever. It doesn't really track for me. It doesn't make sense. So I think that that's a whole separate thing. But that's just my take. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think it would have to be a completely separate thing because, I mean, this entire time I only know anything about Indrid Cold from this, this podcast series we've been doing. But it doesn't sound like if he was going to show up in people's bedrooms while they were asleep and wait for them to wake up, namely young children,
Yeah.
then he would have to be on the same level of creep factor to have, instead of, seeing if Woody would have pulled over and stopped to have a chat with him, maybe just show up in the bathroom while he's naked in the shower,
Right, why
Just
not?
open up the door real quick and then grab him, Yeah.
I mean, he did kidnap him, so that.
Yeah, but he didn't didn't grab him when his pants were down or something.
That's true.
Just,
That's true.
there's a big line in between those two things,
Yeah.
On Lanulos, being naked is normal.
Well, that's true.
Gotta take these clothes off you. I never wear clothes. That's right. Did he ever strip down in front of Woody and just be like, I don't know what you're freaking out about. This is normal.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It doesn't sound like within Indrid's character to creep around. Why wouldn't he just do that instead of, meeting people or, at least waiting for people to stop? Why wouldn't he chase those other cars then, driving down the road and just stalk them and appear? I mean,
right. Pull them out of their cars and shake them. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Mind speaking into them so they go insane. Yeah.
Right. I mean, why not? If he wanted to hurt people or cause harm, he obviously could. I mean, he's perfected space travel. I'm sure he could do some damage if he wanted to, but I don't think he wanted to. Now, is it the same species? Maybe at different Lanulosians that are doing this? I guess so. Why not? I mean, we have people, again, people lie and people play tricks on other people, and maybe for them this is just kind of fun and that's what they do, but I don't know. And weird that we kind of tie a smile into something nefarious, but we do, I guess.
What about the other beings, the ones that Indrid escorted off the planet and out of the solar
The
system?
humanoids?
Yeah. What about them?
They're humanoids.
Well, I mean, what's the whole deal about them? Would they be interested in this sort of stuff, freaking people out?
I think so.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Or stealing your shoes.
Stealing your shoes. That's right.
Yeah. I think they could be. I mean, if we're saying that Indrid is real, then we're also saying that there are possibilities that other things are also real. Now, do they know each other? Well, probably not. No.
We're almost done here, guys. Let's push. What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Indrid Cold was far from the only strange human-like figure in the eastern portion of the Ohio Valley in the years from 1966 to 1967. Another answer for Linda Lilly's story is it could have easily been one of the other strange characters that were seen by thousands of other people. Two groups of outsiders made their way into small towns of central and northern West Virginia and southeastern Ohio. One of these groups were clearly normal humans, but they were suspicious due to their very conservative hairstyles, clothing, and mannerisms. Many believe these were Air Force or other three-letter agency personnel sent to monitor the UFO, monster, and strange humanoid events that were plaguing this area of the country. The second group were the real strange ones. And now that the description of Indrid Cold has been made public in many different forms, from documentaries to books to website articles, it is clear that these were other beings from the same place that Mr. Cold was from. They sported darker skin, and most described by those who witnessed them as bronzed, like that of the natives from the South Asian islands. The features were sharp. The lines for their nose, chins, cheeks, and eyes were too straight. They came in all sizes, from the very short to the very tall. They wore clothes and were very strange for the late 70s. Most wore clothes that were recently out of style or out of style for 10 to 20 years, and some seemed to wear slightly futuristic clothing with very metallic features. They wore very thick-soled rubber shoes with jagged treading, similar to those that the astronauts wore on the moon. Because, of course, Jeff knows we went to the moon. Those who had personal encounters with them described some having to take pill-like capsules with water in order to calm their excessive reddening, bloating, and sweating. And one family even claimed to have spotted a green wire coming from one of their shoes and up their slacks as they sat down. These were the people that were going door to door selling things, asking about children, requesting entrance into people's homes, coming out as telephone line workers after people were having issues with their beeping in their phones, even though they never called the telephone company. It is widely believed that these were the people of Lanulos, or from wherever they were really from. But one thing was obvious to those that lived in the eastern part of the Ohio Valley in 1966 and 1967. They were not from there. Anything?
Alphabet soup.
Alphabet soup, huh?
Yep.
They were just probably people selling phone books. They're all sweaty and stuff, you know.
You tell me I got to pay for this? I get this for free.
Wasn't that the thing back in the day? Phone book salesman? I don't know. You know, I mean,
I have no idea.
I love that that's the thing that was pointed out. The clothing was just like, yeah, it was way out of style. It's like that doesn't happen.
right. So they had
know?
bad fashion sense. I mean,
Yeah, right.
and they were sweaty. I mean, that's my takeaway from it. You know, they had ugly shoes. I don't know. You know, nowadays you have people.
They're aliens. I go to LA
Right,
and I
they're
see aliens
aliens,
all the
obviously.
time by that standard.
Right. I mean, right. You know, nowadays you have people that knock on your door and they want to. This is a really good example. They want to see your utility bills, right?
Yep.
And they're like, "Oh, I work
Yes.
for the electric company, or I work for the gas company," and you know, they want to see your utility bill, and then come to find out they don't actually work for the utility company at all. It's just a sales tactic. They're salespeople.
Mhm.
They salespeople, good ones at that, because they make you believe that they are something that they're not. And so I don't know. I don't think that this is that strange. I think it could very well be something similar to that. And given the time period and the excitement of it, I could very well see people getting wrapped up and going, "Oh, there's something to this. There's people wearing ugly clothes and sweating all over my doorstep," and they thought that there was, maybe something going on, or they're aliens. Whatever.
They have an accent. They're
Yeah.
aliens.
They're aliens.
Yep.
That's fucked up.
Oh, I mean, it could be anything.
1960s West Virginia. I mean, come on,
Yeah, right. Someone from New York, they're like, "It's an alien."
Right.
What did he say?
Right? He said coffee.
So I mean, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Very well.
Jeez.
All right. So Jeff and Jake think alphabet soup, right?
Yep.
100%.
Okay. Just want to take a step back because I totally forgot to mention this. For anybody that's wondering about the whole grinning man thing, if you do a simple Google search for Indrid Cold, you are going to find website after website after website that list Indrid Cold as the grinning man. That's why I brought it up.
He looks like the Joker. All the drawings and stuff. It looks like
He sort of does, doesn't he?
Like the Joker was then taken, or like the idea of the Joker was based off of that, like the sketches of the grinning man, and that's the first thing that comes to mind.
That is very interesting because you're right. Let's take Taunia's book, for example. Her book has, I think, the picture that you're talking about. It does look very Joker-esque, doesn't it?
It looks like the old school comic book version of the Joker. Yep. Like as if.
I wonder if there's anything there. I wonder if they took.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, you guys ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Let's talk about Mothman.
All right.
Now, what a lot of people who are not in the know about Indrid Cold don't know is that all of these events with the man from Lanulos happened at the same time as the craziness that ensued with the Mothman sightings and the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, he begins his dive into the connections between the events of Mothman and Indrid Cold by simply laying a teaser. This teaser states that a National Guardsman was working at the National Guard's armory on the night before Derenberger's event. While working, he saw something large on the limb of a nearby tree that he claimed looked like a large man in a brown suit. He goes on to explain that after looking at it for a while, he determined his final thoughts were that it was some sort of gigantic bird. He left to grab a few buddies to check it out, but when they got there, it was gone. November 15th, 1966, just 13 days after Woody Derenberger's events with Mr. Cold, one of the earliest events of the Mothman was about to take place. The famous Scarberry Mallet. Is it Mallet or Mallet?
It's mallet.
Mallet.
Yep, it is. Yeah. Yep. Very simple. No, yeah.
I'm garbage. Thanks.
It's West Virginia.
Mole.
Yeah,
I'm
mallet.
gonna go shop at Target later.
Mallet.
Shut up, Jake.
Yeah, the mallets. That's okay.
The Jake, shut up. The famous Scarberry Mallet encounter ensued as the two couples were driving through the infamous TNT area and ended with them being chased by a large black flying creature with gigantic red shining eyes. That is all we will go into on this event for today. Remember, this episode is about Indrid Cold. Stay tuned for our episode covering the Mothman in great detail later on down the road, and all of your questions will be answered. I am including these events for timeline purposes and to show the possible relationship between Indrid Cold and Mothman. Although, altogether, over 100 people witnessed and reported their encounters with the Mothman between 66 and 67. Before the legend of the Mothman could be concluded, there was one last event that took place that brought the entire country's eyes to the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. At 5:04 p.m. on December 15th, 1967, exactly 13 months to the day after Woody's first contact with Indrid Cold, the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River. The tragic event sent 50 cars and trucks 102 feet to their cold, dark graves as several tons of hardened steel fell after most of the cars, ensuring their fates as they pinned the vehicles and many of their occupants to the bottom of the river. 46 people passed away that evening due to the collapse of the Silver Bridge, and countless others were pulled out of the sub-freezing waters, barely holding on to their lives. That night, the Lilly family, remember Linda Lilly, counted 12 red lights dancing above the tree line from their home on Camp Connolly Road. The most reported to be seen in one place, and they seem to have been coming from the infamous TNT area. The lights that so many people became so familiar with over the last year or so gathered for their last time in a spectacular showing on the night of the area's largest disaster in history. This final chapter to the extremely strange events surrounding aliens, lights, and flying humanoid monsters that plagued the eastern portions of the Ohio Valley ended in both the death of many that forever ruined many families in the area and a brilliant finale of red lights bidding their end to the place they visited so frequently. And this night all began that same morning when people claim to have seen strange men in brand new blue coveralls, quote unquote, inspecting the bridge. And hours before the deadliest disaster in this little town's history, a large crowd witnessed what the locals believed to be the Mothman flying over the bridge, starting a long string of coincidences of the figure being described as a harbinger of disaster and possibly a puppet of beings from another world. The end. That's it. That is everything I have on Injured Cold.
Holy shit.
He found his organizer.
Asherz.
Yeah.
Did I fuck up?
I mean, it was terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
38 pages of crap.
You did. And none of that was true. No, I'm just kidding. No, you did a really good job. I think that you covered pretty much anything and everything that you could possibly uncover, short of just speaking with people that claim to have, that know Indrid or whatever. I think that well, hold on. Let's back up a second. Are we gonna do we want to talk about if there's a Mothman connection or theories behind it, or okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we are in the part of the topic now where we are chatting. You got
Awesome.
extra stuff to add? Go for it. I'm sitting back.
Okay. I've had theories thrown at me because it is weird that all that kind of seemed, well, initially it seems weird that all that seemed to happen at the same time. Some people have posed the theory that maybe the Mothman was in the area because Indrid was in the area, because the Mothman was some type of bounty hunter for Indrid, and that's why Indrid was here to begin with. It's because he was hiding. And that's why they said that that's why the Mothman was reported looking into people's windows and chasing cars and things like that, because he was looking for Indrid. I don't think that there's anything to that. Without giving away too much about what's to be expected, in the future, both from your end and mine. I'm a pretty big voice about how the Mothman is not a harbinger of doom at all. Which isn't a very popular theory. Listen, I love Keel, I do, but Keel was very much a storyteller. And I think that what happened was he hit a roadblock in how to end this. I feel like the Mothman story itself was, kind of one of his most extensive pieces of research. And I think a lot of people would agree. And I think that when he started writing it into a book, he really didn't know how to finish it. So I think that he made up the the tie to the bridge collapse, because the fact of the matter is that wasn't the last time the Mothman was seen, and it wasn't the last time he was seen in that area, and he was never seen at the Silver Bridge. And so or at least if he was, there's never been a name put to these people that allegedly saw him. That's kind of more the folktale aspect of it. And when you go back and you really start digging of instances of high strangeness, it never stopped. I was saying that earlier. These things never began and ended anywhere. They've just always been. And I feel like Keel even kind of has Freudian slips and alludes to that in a lot of his later research. So I don't think, for me personally, I don't think there's any connection to the Indrid Cold story. I think that, he was just trying to make a connection where nothing was. I think that he was there, so therefore he was investigating two different things at once, but it doesn't mean that it's related. That's like me saying that I'm going to go to Germantown, Ohio, and I'm going to investigate the Butter Street Beast, which is a dog man, here locally. But also, I think that it's connected as well to the hauntings at the Air Force Base, or, something like that. Just because they're demographically close to each other doesn't necessarily mean that there's a tie. And I think that, that's the part that gets left out a lot. So, there's my theory. I don't think that they're related to one another. Indrid doesn't talk about Mothman to Taunia. I've asked her. That's how I started talking to Taunia, was because I wanted her in the Mothman documentary. And, we've talked about it. And she says, no, Indrid never really, it doesn't concern him at all. And so, and that's all I can really go off of, aside from just asking Indrid myself, and the guy won't return my phone calls, so I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that's basically my final thoughts on that connection.
Jeremy, you didn't bust out that last theory that we talked about on ARC.
What's that?
The one about Woody.
don't know what you're
All
talking
right, I'm
about.
gonna have to message you because I want you to say it, not me.
Okay.
Okay.
I want you to sound stupid.
Yeah. Well, you're the one who did the research on it. I don't know anything.
I don't know anything about Mothman, other than I saw a guy the other day in the Publix parking lot with a Mothman shirt, and I almost stopped him to take a picture to send it to you.
Oh. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Asher, so we totally did forget something.
Yep.
Oh,
Told
okay.
you.
Okay, so that wasn't a theory or anything. That was something I cut out because I didn't think it was very relevant to the whole
It
story
is relevant.
or anything.
What if it's
not.
true?
It's totally.
I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're gonna say, but go ahead and say it.
Okay, so there was this theory going around, or this rumor in the area that Woody was pregnant.
I knew it.
And so get this, right? And I'm talking to the listeners and Jeff, right? Because Jake already heard me talk about it. This woman, he gave this one example of this woman who called him up to help her with an appliance. I can't remember, microwave or stove or something, right? She ended up getting there, or he ended up getting there and finding out that she didn't really need anything. She just wanted to ask him if he was pregnant.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I'm pregnant.
Yeah. So so yes, I've talked to Taunia about this. And
So is it true? Was he pregnant with Indrid's baby?
He was not pregnant. That's so disappointing. I know. He was not. Just that rumor started going around, so he just kind of, at that point in time, he had already been laughed at and mocked and everything. So he just went with it, and he told people that he was. And let me tell you something. That was one of the first things that I had ever heard about the Indrid Cold story, was that, oh yeah, some guy had this relationship with this alien and he got pregnant by him. And I was like, yeah, I'm not. That's bullshit. Yeah, it was like one of the first things I had ever heard. I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. And I never really paid much attention to it, until I really started reading into it. And yeah, it wasn't that, he admitted that he was, but he wasn't serious. Or maybe there's a human alien baby running around. I don't know.
Add a completely different dynamic to this whole relationship between him and Indrid if he was. That lonely flight to Lanulos.
Where he was blindfolded?
Yeah.
No, I've asked all kinds of crazy shit to Taunia. I've asked her, like, I'm like,
would you like a massage while you wait?
Right. I'm like, is Indrid here because maybe, like, he's just a big loser on his planet and, like, he can't make friends there, so he comes to Earth because nobody likes him. I don't know why she talks to me, but she does. She's like, no, she's like, I don't know. She's like, it could be. So I don't know. Nothing is too, I'll say that if the listeners want to, if you guys want to send me questions to ask Taunia, I'll ask her. I'll ask her whatever you want. She's very nice. And like I said, for some reason, she likes me and puts up with my shit. So, I mean, I'll push that envelope as far as I can.
All right, listeners, you hear that?
Yeah.
She's in our group.
I
Literally ask the questions to the group and just tag her in it.
Yep.
And she'll get it.
I'm going to ask so many
you can-
questions. I can't wait. I can't wait.
No, I always encourage it. I'm like, she won't talk to anybody else, so everybody's got to go through me. No, it's fine. I mean, you guys think of stuff that I don't think of, and I think it is very important to ask her. I mean, I think it is. If she can't answer the hard questions, then obviously there's a hole in her story. And I don't expect her to have the answer to everything because she's not Indrid. I do expect some degree of those questions, and I don't know if she's never offered. She's never been like, I'll ask them. I don't know why. Maybe it's because right now their meetings are very brief. Right now, she hasn't really seen Indrid because she'd been living in a nursing home for a really long time and recovering. She's got MS, so she's, pretty sickly. But, she was in a nursing home for a long time, and she said Indrid wouldn't visit because then there's lots of people around and, he doesn't want to be found out by people. But also because I don't know if I want to say this. I'll say it. They're nervous because of the pandemic.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
they don't want to visit as much or anything like that. But she said, but they have come to visit. The boys have come to visit, and Indrid has come to visit her, since it's happened, just not as frequently. She's moved. She's recently moved into a home, or an actual house. And I'm wondering if maybe I'll ask her if Indrid's come by to visit yet.
I could see if she's in her own house, it'd be easier for him to approach.
Yeah, right. I mean, so, especially with the pandemic and the way it's been, they've been pretty strict about who's visiting and when.
Right.
And so, I mean, that makes sense. You show up and they're like, "Oh, I need to see your ID," and he's like, what?" I'm like, "I what?"
Check the logs, see if someone signed in as Injured Cold.
Well, right. I mean, that could be a lead if he did.
Indrid polled.
Yeah, I mean,
never know.
Super sly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously I'm very curious where this goes and if this continues. Taunia has I don't know how much I can share.
Don't share too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I want to be respectful to
absolutely.
Taunia,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, and that's, number one, I only try to share things that are, I've explicitly confirmed with her, but obviously with Taunia, being sickly, and she is sickly a lot. The question is, what happens when she dies? Does Indrid continue to visit somebody else? Does the torch get carried? Does he just never come back to Earth again? What's going to happen?
Does she have children?
She does. And so, she's got grandkids too, even. So, is it a generational thing and they just continue? Because Indrid is only considered middle-aged right now. He's in his 90s. I think he's 94 or 90. I mean, he might be 95. I don't know when his birthday is. I should ask when his birthday is. And then we can celebrate Indrid's birthday. But, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he's still got, they live to be about 200. So, I mean, he's still got a whole nother life ahead of him. I mean, he's just now, it's like if, we were, if you're in your 40s now or whatever.
What about getting a picture of the streets of Lanulos for Jeff?
Well, here's a question.
Sure.
So, like, if he lives to be, or they live to be around 200, in what years? In Earth years or Lanulos years?
Well, that is a good question. I will definitely ask that. I think probably that's in comparison, because that claim came from straight from Woody. I believe that's in his book. So I think when it's explained to him in Earth terms.
Yeah, that was in the first episode, that it was between 125 to 175 Earth years.
Okay.
Earth years, yeah. That would make sense. But I'll ask her.
I'm sure it was said, but it's just been so long. What was the original reason for Indrid Cold visiting or talking to Woody or starting a relationship?
It was the gradual, basically, infiltration into the U.S. population with the knowledge that there are beings outside of our planet, and that there's the galactic, I can't remember,
Federation,
something like that, right? Right.
Some Corey good shit.
Yeah, exactly. And that this option is out there, and that, they're either trying to recruit us, or they're trying to see if there's interest, or proving to everybody that they're harmless before they come forward to the masses, or something along those lines. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Some of this stuff is sketch, it is.
Yeah.
It's an extremely interesting story. But yeah, there's definitely some holes that, I wish that somebody could come forward and fill. Asherz asked, who's the next one to grab the torch? Hopefully, whoever it is comes forward and has some more answers.
I mean, okay, so he and his family are now visiting a elderly woman, and it's been 60 years. So, well, not 60 years, like 50 something years, but so that's the extent of the last 57 years, is that he's still just hanging around her. What is he waiting for us to kill each other through nuclear holocaust or something like that, to then just be like, hey, I'm an alien? like he hasn't exposed himself to any other people that would, even know what to do about a quote unquote galactic federation. Because I guarantee you that some people in rural West Virginia, you say like, I want to, introduce you to the Galactic Federation, and be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go grab my rocket that's in my silo back there. Like, they just, what's the goal here? Because for me, in terms of, I agree, this is a very interesting story, but to me, it also seems like it's either one of the most elaborate, like, introductions to the idea of aliens ever by the Alphabet Soup Boys, or it's, maybe there's some truth to it, but it mostly has like I keep saying it, a Mel's Hole type of feeling to it. Like there's just more, and then there's more, and then there's more, because there's things that just aren't lining up to me and making any sense. And like I have right here in my notes, I have like that whole disease thing from like the very first or the second episode that we did, where it was, so why exactly were they so scared of him stepping off the ship if they're breathing in his face and doing all this sort of stuff? They don't want to come over here because of the pandemic, because of our germs and stuff, which, they're scared that what someone's going to breathe on them. What did they bring from Lanulos, where they're blowing it all over Woody and, his family and stuff, and they didn't care. And like, there's things that for me just don't make any sense. They're not lining up. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. Right. And then this thing, it's like, all right, so the whole Galactic Federation idea, or a joining of the species, or a joining of the planets, or some sort of like, coming together sort of a thing. Okay, well, here we are, almost 60 years later, and they haven't done any of that, or it doesn't sound like they've done any of that. Maybe there is, I don't know. He could have been showing up to the Pentagon and all that sort of stuff, or another government in the world. Let's not be exclusive to the United States, but what's the next step? What's the advancing from that point? Because like a lot of the times you hear about like alien encounters and stuff, and there's this like whimsical, like, oh, they wanted to help us and help us to further ourselves in the next realm of whatever, and blah 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 blah. It's like, all right, cool, well, since that happened, we've had X number of wars. We were threatening each other with nuclear holocaust on a weekly basis. When's that stepping in and helping us supposed to happen? Because it just sounds far-fetched, right? It sounds like there's just more and more and more added. And then it goes into further things where it's like, all right, well, where's a picture of him? You never taken a selfie with your alien friend at least once? Where's where's that training thing or whatever it was, when all those pink ships started coming down and there was 50 people there, and they're all there to meet the alien and all that sort of stuff, but no one had any way to take a picture or to shoot a film. No one had any of that sort of stuff. It just like, there's so many different things for me that it's just like, I can get my head around the fact that somebody had a weird experience at one point, and maybe like what Jeff was saying, they had implanted thoughts and all sorts of stuff, because the government does all kinds of weird, nasty stuff to people's brains. But I think that everything outside of that very even stream of like first contact, then follow up, then a relationship established, and they're still getting followed up on and all that sort of stuff. There's like a river that goes through, but all these branch offs and all these other streams are just crap, because they lead to dead ends. They lead to a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense, and it's just like that. It's very strange to me, and I can't really. And that's just from where I'm sitting right here. All I know about this is from this episode right here. I can't take Asher's experience talking to Taunia, who had her experience as a child, and however long that, relationship went with Indrid into her adulthood and all that sort of stuff. Like how many times they made contact, and how many times they they saw each other's families and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's all, in her realm. But just from where I'm sitting right here, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. And so it's just like, it's way easier for me to keep sitting in my chair of, well, none of this stuff exists and it's just a fantastical story, than to step off the ledge into the idea of there's something else out there, because, well, there's so many holes that I'm looking at. I don't know.
Is that your final thoughts?
That's it.
Oh.
Yeah, man. Well, here's why a lot of those things don't happen, like you're saying, is because it's a distraction. And no disrespect to your friend Asherz, I believe that these people all truly believe what it is they're experiencing. But I don't personally believe what they're experiencing is what they think. I think, like I've been saying pretty much this whole time, it's either some sort of, mind control or whatever the case is. I don't know, but it just seems like there's too many things that line up with, hey, this is probably a secret government op that's being perpetrated on unknowing victims. Again, there's a long list of those, by the way, of people, so it's not too crazy to think of. But that's pretty much where I'm at.
Huge list.
Yeah.
Asherz, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
What would you prefer?
You're my guest.
Okay, I'll go. All right, so
both of you are idiots. Well, you'll never meet him because he doesn't like losers like you.
So, okay, so all right, and my theories are subject to change with new information. There's my disclaimer. But where I'm at with it right now is the only way that this could make sense to me is, so within our world, right, we have secret operations that happen all the time that we don't even know are happening around us. So I think it's safe to say that probably Lanulos is very similar, and they probably also have secret operations. I think that initially we were probably a part of one of those secret operations. I think that Indrid was sent here to partake in that secret operation, and he's not at any type of liberty to explain that to us because we are, far less inferior to them. So why would he explain those things? I think that him coming in and befriending a human was always part of the plan. I think, and for a couple of reasons, because then, at that point in time, it doesn't look strange when, you just have a random small town person walking around town with their friends, inviting their alien friend to the barbecue and things like that. Nobody really knows. I think that for whatever reason, they were betting on the fact that this story wouldn't really gain traction. The Lanulosians, that is. I think that they weren't intending for that to get out, because at that point in time, really up until this well, here it goes, flap, a lot of people didn't talk about their experiences like that with aliens. We had very select few cases that did, and they did, gain traction and publicity, but people for the most part were pretty hush hush about it. And I think that they were hoping that would happen when they came and befriended one of these people. But that didn't happen. The story got a little bit bigger, and maybe it didn't go as planned, so maybe the operation was abandoned. However, I think that Indrid kind of went rogue and took it upon himself to continue, either because he was curious or because maybe he actually felt some type of camaraderie with Woody. I think that it would be safe to say that they probably do have feelings like we do. And so maybe he wanted to continue the relationship. So he did, which is why there's been no progression, and there's no intention on making progression, because it was decided that whenever Woody was harassed to the extent that he was, maybe that's what scared them away. And they went, well, this didn't go as planned. Let's just pull away from this. And as a whole, they decided to pull out the operation. But again, Indrid continued for whatever reason he had. That I mean, as weird as it sounds, that all kind of makes sense to me. I think that this is a case that is definitely gaining more traction as the years go on. And I think that it's a very overlooked piece of evidence for life on other planets, intelligent life on other planets that could be visiting us. I think that more people should talk about it because even though maybe not every single little detail of the story adds up, and I'll be honest, it doesn't, there are select pieces that do tend to add up and, really blow it out of the water for me. I think that Indrid Cold is real. And I think that, he probably does still visit Taunia. And, I think that he probably never will go beyond that. I think that once Taunia dies, that's it. That's the end of the story. And not because Indrid never existed, but because he's doing it for personal reasons now, he's got no reason to come back. And that's just kind of I mean, it's unfortunate, I think, but there's nothing that we can do. Again, we're very inferior to these things, so it really doesn't make a difference how we feel about it or if we want advancement. They also have to want it as well. They have to want to make that contact with us, and I just don't see that happening because I think that humans are still very infantile compared to probably the possibilities that are out there. So, I just ask everybody to keep a very open mind, remember the facts of it, and some of the really key pieces of evidence. I think another reason why some of it doesn't make sense is because, again, we just aren't simply meant to know. We're not entitled to any of the Lanulosians' information. They don't have to tell us anything. And I think that maybe they didn't do that. And so, therefore, we tried to draw conclusions where there weren't any and things like that. And, of course, you had people that came forward, and I think they did probably lie about experiences with them and things. That's bound to happen. But as far as Woodrow Derenberger and Indrid Cold go, again, I think it's a very real relationship. I think it happened, and it sounds crazy, but I don't know. There's so much I can't explain away about it. So that's where I'm at with it right now.
I like it. You're humble.
I suppose.
All right, my turn. I don't know if this has really caught on with other people. I know that there is a lot of tie-ins to Indrid Cold and the Men in Black because of Keel. I really, really think that this is a Men in Black story. I think that Indrid, Demo, and the entire crew could possibly be the Men in Black. I do believe in the Men in Black. There are a lot of episodes that I wish we did before this, such as a Men in Black episode, so we can really dive into that whole topic and you guys can understand more about where I'm coming from. But I think that this is a Men in Black. And I think that what they were chasing could possibly have been Mothman. Hang with me for a second. This was in the far eastern portion of the Ohio Valley in the 60s. This was UFO Central. This was the middle of the strange. I'm talking all kinds of stuff. You had a plethora of different creatures popping up, not just Mothman. We'll get into some of those later on here in the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Just take my word for it. Plenty of them. A lot of really strange things. This was a hot spot for the strange. Obviously, when you have some of this really strange stuff happening, this is going to send up red flags everywhere in the government. Do I believe that this was the Air Force? No. I think this was above the Air Force. I think this was getting so bad here in the Ohio Valley that the government had to dig really, really deep into some of these shadow organizations. One such as the Men in Black. Now, that could just be the name that we have for them. Thank you, John Keel. But I'm still talking about the Men in Black. Doesn't matter what you call them. I think that they came out and they were looking for these things that were going on. What's the best way to do it? Well, there's a bunch of UFOs flying around the air. and there's creatures popping up everywhere. Mothman, a couple others. We're going to cover them later on. But I think these Men in Black characters really had to come up with something to be believed or to kind of get into the pulse of the community. And how do they do that? Well, they drop out of the sky in something that looks like what everyone is seeing up in the sky. I had mentioned before that this was a hot topic for the area. People were excited about these UFOs. And when Woody Derenberger came forward, he came forward with, hey, you guys all saw it. I got contacted by one. This opened the floodgates to the community. This allowed Indrid Cold, who I believe was a man in black, to put his fingers on the pulse of what was really going on. What else are you seeing? Where are you seeing it? Through that, there may have been some personal friendships made, whether it be with the Derenbergers or a couple other people around. Unfortunately, the feeling of getting onto a spacecraft and flying to a place like Lanulos or flying to the moon and getting to a spacecraft, a mothership, just outside of the moon, flying to Venus, flying to Saturn, can be easily faked with the use of drugs, with the use of memory implanting, kind of like what Jeff was talking about. I think this stuff can easily be faked. Not by Woody, but implanted by Indrid. So I want you to take a minute and really think about my point of view here. The only thing that I can come up with that doesn't really fit is why did he build a relationship with Woody Derenberger? If this is a deep, dark, secretive government organization, such as what we know as the Men in Black, a personal relationship with one of your subjects would be one of the worst things you can do. Just my opinion, but I think that is what happened in the story of Indrid Cold.
Dun, 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 dun.
Right?
It would be the worst thing you could do.
It would be.
It'd be really dumb.
I think it's pretty solid. I mean, I'm open to the possibilities, as much as I have my own, my own thoughts on it. If I were right, then we wouldn't be doing the show. We would be doing the show about how right I am, and so
Right.
that's so. I mean, like I said, I'm open. I'm open to the possibilities.
Today on Infinite Rabbit Hole, we're going to be talking about Asher's Indrid Cold stories.
Yeah,
with
right,
Asherz.
exactly.
That's the whole point of the Infinite Rabbit Hole, is that we have these different points of views and we can come to different conclusions. And, somebody out there listening probably agrees with one of us in one way or the other, or has their own opinion. And if you do, head on over to the Facebook group and let us know. We want to hear it.
Yeah. And Bigfoot.
And we did.
Yeah. See, I got you.
I don't think we did it in episode 3, did we?
That's all right. I'll do a little thing in there. Be like Bigfoot in the very beginning.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely having our own points of view is important. But yeah, can you ask Taunia for a picture of him if he shows back up?
Absolutely.
Now, I could be wrong, but I don't see like how that would be so much of a breach in security. Well, maybe it would be. I don't know. Or like like I said, a picture of the streets for Jeff. Just like, you don't have to tell us anything about how to get there, what the planet looks like from the outside, just a picture of the city or the streets so Jeff can see the cars going down the road in the trenches. I mean, it's been 60 years. It probably more advanced. I don't know. Our technology advances dramatically or has advanced dramatically in 60 years. But, I think it'd be interesting.
Well, Taunia hasn't been there, and I've always kind of wondered why not. Because and she could say it's because she doesn't want to, and Indrid respects that, but like Indrid did not respect that when Woody didn't want to. So like that really bothers me. Like it really bugs me that Indrid just was like, well, we're gonna we're gonna go here now, and they did. But I guess maybe he got him in the ship to begin with, and so maybe he did have to agree to that part, and she hasn't. But I do wonder what Lanulos is like now. What kind of differences there might be compared to what was back in the 60s. I mean, now in 2020, or 2022 or whatever year it is now. But I'm curious about that. But I will ask her about the picture and see. Obviously, I think that would help her case. If she really wants to. I don't think she cares to prove to anybody that this is real. I just think that she cares to share her story and her dad's story. And, whether it's real or not, I think, again, she's so used to people not believing her that feels like she's got nothing to prove. But I hope she understands the importance of, how important it is for people like myself that we do have some type of evidence that this did happen. And,
Right.
photo and video evidence are probably really good indicators. So,
I mean, yeah, she doesn't even have to take the picture like herself over in Lanulos. I mean, if it takes 30 minutes to fly there, just be like, hey man, can you zip over there with this digital camera, take a couple pics, and then come back?
right. Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I think that would be great if she did that. So I'll ask her.
That'd be cool.
Any parting thoughts for anybody?
Asherz, thank you so much for joining us. Even though we didn't see eye to eye and we all have our own opinions and stuff, it was very nice having as close as we can get to an expert on the topic that we're covering versus, I'm not going to say we do a bad job of, certainly with Jeremy doing so many notes and stuff, that we do a bad job breaking stuff down and everything, but it really helps to have someone that's really, hardcore about the subject. And you filled that spot for us in this episode and this series of episodes. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming back over and over again and taking that time with us. It's been a very interesting time. I enjoyed the ride, even though I didn't really come to the conclusion that I think Jeremy was hoping for. I really enjoyed it. And I just, you seem like a very busy person. So the fact that you put your schedule aside and took the time to just hang out with us for a little bit means a heck of a lot to me, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoy being here, and I'll spoiler alert, I'll be back.
Ooh,
like Indrid called. You'll be back to flap with us.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Got many more flaps to discuss on the show.
Actually, it will be about a lot of flapping.
Yeah, it will. Flapping around.
Lots of flap. Yeah.
Jake, you want to know what I really thought your answer was going to be to all this?
That was demons?
No.
Oh, no, that makes me sad for you, Jake. That's the first conclusion that people come to. Well, let's talk about for a second how Jeremy was like, he gets a hold of Jake to talk about Catholicism because he must be Catholic, I guess. I mean, what was that about?
I don't know. Jeremy has his points of view as far as how we got here and, what's beyond this and everything. And he knows that I'm a Christian guy. I'm a Bible-believing Christian.
Sure.
Like I said in, I think, it was the second episode that, the Bible is about a lot of things and isn't about a lot of things. And so there's room for exploration and stuff. You're not going to find an angler fish in the Bible, right? That doesn't mean they don't exist. So there's, a lot of things in there that's open for discovery. And, but when it comes to religious things, at least he knows that Catholicism and Christianity, we have pretty much, I would say the basics kind of are the same, as far as, believing in the Trinity and all that sort of stuff. There's differences when it comes to, the different denominations of Christianity versus Roman Catholicism. But he just wanted my feedback because, we try really hard when it comes to, if we're going to bring up the subject of religion, of whatever that may be, it's important to get it right because the information, you can speculate about whatever you want as long as the baseline information is correct. Like if someone wants to speculate that Jesus is an alien, okay, well, that's up to you, whatever. You know, you can say whatever you want, but at least be respectful enough to get the basics of Christianity and what we believe down, right? Don't make a general assumption and then base some ridiculous notion off of that. So he wanted to know, hey, do the Catholics think that, the last pope was going to be named Peter? I don't have that information. I heard about some quote unquote prophecy from 200 years ago that listed out some popes and stuff, and that currently the one that we have now is supposed to be the last one, or it was the last one on the list. Where to find that information, I don't know. Do a Google search. I'm sure it's somewhere, but it's just not in my wheelhouse. But one of the episodes for Krampus, he took a character that was in the Bible in the Old Testament and was talking about her seducing. She was in charge of responsible for John the Baptist being beheaded. She asked for his head while he was in prison, and he was executed because of this woman. But she seduced the people that she was dancing for, and some people liken that to some kind of witchcraft, or she put a spell on them, and then that was going to branch off into Krampus in so many different ways. But he had to get the roots, who is this person, what's the biblical significance. It was I think it was Herod's daughter, and so King Herod's daughter, so it was who was this sort of person. And so getting that baseline correct, because then you can take that and then go wherever you want to with it. That's your own prerogative, right? But say if we were going to talk about Hinduism, it would be really important if we were going to talk about Shiva. I think it's Shiva that's in front of CERN, right? The statue, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
What?
I was muted.
But
I was muted.
Is that the one it is? It's Shiva?
Yep.
All right. So I think, if I were to make assumptions of why that Shiva statue is in front of CERN or on the grounds of CERN where they have the Hadron Collider, people base their entire lives off of their religious beliefs. So it would be a disservice to our listeners of who knows how many are Hindu for me to just throw some crap out of my face that I know nothing about, instead of doing a deep dive or some research or whatever, and being like, this is who Shiva is, this is what she represents, this is what her name means, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. It's important to get that sort of stuff correct. So when he was hitting me up on that, it was just basically like, hey, do you know anything about this? And me and my wife were over at some museum, and I was like, nope, not a clue. And he's like, all right, cool. So, and that's why I think that his research went into that. And then it was like, I found this book, I don't know, and it's like, all right, well, that's pretty much the basics of it. So yeah, it's just something like that. So, as far as when it comes to Christianity and stuff, what we believe, what we don't believe, how we rationalize stuff, if it's a question about that for his research purposes, he'll hit me up and he'll be like, hey, what do you know about this? Or can you walk me through this? Or, let's get a meeting down real quick so I can take some notes. And so I really value that about him. We don't share beliefs as far as the afterlife and all that sort of stuff and how we got here. But I value that about him, that he is so open to hearing what I have to say and making sure that he has it right,
Well, I think that one thing that you all do that is correct, and that's kind of, I've been explaining the show to people, and when I'm explaining it, I explain you both in your very individual, unique ways, and that the thing that works about what you guys seem to do here is that you don't completely write off anybody else's idea, and you're open to listening at least to the opposing side, even if it doesn't align. And I think that that's beautiful. So good for you guys for not writing off anybody and being open to the possibilities. That's all we can
good for
ask.
us.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to clear up the whole thing with the Catholic Pope, right? So I had some stuff. I did. I wasn't able to verify it. So I cut it. And the only thing that I could verify was that this prediction of the last Pope was in a fictional book. So that's what I went with. There is a lot of stuff that I end up cutting out of episodes because I can't verify them.
Right.
And I really try not to. I either try to get information from firsthand accounts or secondhand accounts, or something I can verify by other sources. when I mean first and second hand accounts, Woody Derenberger being a first hand account, and John Keel being a second hand account. Third hand, when it's like I'm the third hand, right? I'm the person who's reading Keel, who's talking about Woody.
Right.
So I don't want to go to another third hand account to get information about the first and second hand accounts, because all I'm doing is looking at it from another person's point of view from the same place that I'm looking at.
Sure.
Now I'm going to get that by talking to you guys, right? So that's why I don't include that. I try to pick topics where, you know, like the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident. Boom, I was able to get books from the people.
Right.
You know, a bunch of, I'm not going to go over every subject. Dumb. But probably going to end up shortening this whole thing down. But yeah, so that's, you know, that's why I go to him. I don't know anything about, I know that there's a difference between Christianity and Catholic.
Yeah, Catholicism.
Catholics.
Yeah.
There it is.
Between
I don't know.
Christianity and catheters, yeah.
Catheters, yeah. I don't know what the differences are,
Sure.
you know, but I know that, you know, they share a lot of similarities. And I was like, hey, Jake, I know you guys don't really, you know, do the, you know, I know that Christians don't really believe in popes or like figures like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it was kind of a long shot, but I was like, hey, you know, what if he does? So go to him, who I consider a secondhand source, and that's why I go to Jake for this stuff, is because the Bible's the first hand source,
Mm-hmm.
and Jake is a reader of the Bible and a follower of the Bible, so he is my secondhand source.
Right. Well, you know, what I can tell you is that the only things that I had to correct you on, you know, and I want to make this clear, are things that the only reason why I know about them is because I have dedicated years of my life to researching it.
Right.
You know, not that it was so simple that you could just do a quick Google search and find that information out. So I commend you for that. Like I said, I am thoroughly impressed with all of the research that you put into this, and I think that the way that you guys split up the research is absolutely genius. Because that I think that helps a lot. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are you sure you don't want a two-parter? This is going to be a heck of a long one.
No, we really don't have the.
I think there's a lot that needs cut, but I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, all the spots where Jeff, where Jeremy was talking, and Jeff, and me. Just leave Asherz. That's what everyone's here for, anyway.
Anyways,
just anybody saying flap. That's the whole episode.
Flap.
Yeah,
flap, flap, flap.
All right, Asherz, one last time. Go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you and talk about your new show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came up with a new show recently. It's called Monster Radio. You can find Monster Radio over on YouTube. You can find it pretty much anywhere you get on, listen to podcasts. I know the YouTube channel we're anticipating doing live streams and things like that. So you definitely want to subscribe over there to Monster Radio if you're not. I also host a weekly show called On Wednesdays We Talk Weird, which can also be found absolutely anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's the only thing that comes up when you Google it, so it's super simple. You can follow me directly, either over on Facebook, which I am a part of the Infinite Rabbit Hole Facebook group, so I'm over there, or you can friend me directly, Ashley Hilt, the one with the red hair. And you can also follow me on either Twitter or Instagram at It's Asherz with a Z.
I'm just going to reiterate whatever Jake just said to you before about thanking you. I can't. Like,
Ditto.
seriously. Yeah. I was literally going to say ditto, but she was talking and I was like, it's fine. Anyways, ditto. No, seriously.
Showing that appreciation, you know.
I really am sorry that it took so long to get you on, but this topic was really important for me to get right. I wanted to make sure that I had all the information. I saw it growing and growing and growing. And then, I knew you wanted to come on and I was like, okay, got to make this right. This is a big episode for us as a show. Got to do right by Asherz. And you've said it, but I believe that you probably say that for everybody because you're just a nice person. But I can't stress enough how happy I am to have you along on this ride with us. It was awesome. You put more into this episode than any guest that we've had. This was an absolute blast. Thank you for all of the information that you shared with us. I really do look forward to having you back on and working with you. You know, if you ever need help with something, I know we're just little guys, but we like what we do. So just, reach out and just say, hey, dipshits, JJ and Jay, get over here. And one of us will be there. And you've made a friend of the podcast for sure. 100%. And I really do look forward to a lot of the other stuff that you have coming out, including your documentary that you've been working on. I'm very excited to see that. I wish you the best of luck with everything that you have coming up in the near future and in the not so near future. Just in the future. I hope everything goes well. I don't talk well. I'm hungry and tired and cold and just
roughing it. No, it's okay. I absolutely, I'm looking forward to coming back. Definitely appreciate it. I'm just a message away. So, don't, yes, I am very busy. I am, but I try to, promptly respond to things and an appropriate time frame and things like that. So I'm not unapproachable. I hope that's been made clear. But yeah, definitely.
Well, I sent you a message, so we'll see. We'll see how approachable you are.
Probably
did
just
you say
says
hey?
hi. Yeah, hi 50 million times.
No, I did not say hi. All right.
And then flaps. No.
That I did say. I did say that.
I'm never even gonna read it. No.
Super approachable. See, this is what happens when you meet celebrities. They just
I know.
cut you out. Yeah.
Well, we're still recording, so I have to lie. But
yeah, don't message me. I won't see it. I'll see it.
But no, yeah, I know. I'm definitely excited. I think that you guys are doing great things, and hey, we all of us were little guys at some point, so you'll do just fine.
We're still little guys, but we're getting it. We're putting our big boy
number
pants
13
on.
sci-fi. We're not little guys.
I know. Well, that's on Good Pods. Well, I love Good Pods. Anybody listening needs a new place to go listen to podcasts, check out Good Pods. They're pretty awesome. Jeff.
Yep.
Say things.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Bye, Asherz. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, Asherz. Thanks for joining us.
He's sleeping.
It's okay. I hope you get your kitchen organized.
I will try.
All right. Well, I just want to be the last voice that you hear. Well, probably not, because Jake's probably going to squeeze a bye in there. There it is. Thank you all for joining us on our season 4 finale of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. I'm Jeremy. I'm your host. We have a lot to look forward to. Next week, we're going to take a look back on the entire season, and we're going to talk to the cast of the Infinite Rabbit Hole and go over our favorite parts of the season. Immediately after that, we're going to look forward to season 5. We have a lot in store for you, but get ready, because the Infinite Rabbit Hole hasn't ended. But until then, once again, thank you for joining us on this path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.
Bye.
There it is.
Bye.
There
Bye.
he is.